hard cut on the music.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome back
No.
to Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I'm your host,
No
Caleb.
music, says Caleb. Hi, I'm Seth. I talk Star Wars with this man.
All right. So today's topic is we finally get to talk about the show we've been wanting to talk, Ahsoka. We've been wanting to talk this I've been wanting to talk this for a minute. You finally got to sit down and watch it this week. Because I helped you watch it. I was like, here you go.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, we usually go talk. Well, before we even get into Star Wars news, we like to talk about what we've been up to this week. Oh,
Are you okay?
yeah, I dropped my phone.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. My pockets are. I'm wearing the shorts that
Small
were my
pockets.
Yeah, small pockets. But we'll kind of keep what we've been up to this week a little bit shorter than usual, because we have a lot of news. And there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about with Ahsoka. So, and we're already kind of running just a tad late. So, I'll start for once and kind of say what I've been up to. So I started going back to Barnes and Nobles more, getting more books. Because I've been trying to make sure our physical collection fills out and we have stuff whenever we talk about it. Like I got Eye of Darkness up there.
It's somewhere in there.
It's on that second row of the mesh
That's
shelving.
a big book.
Yeah, it's a big book. It's a big book. And I've been listening to the audiobook as well. Barnes & Noble now has so you know how like all the bookstores have like their little rewards program and you pay like a yearly thing. Now they have a free one. And it's very similar to it's very similar to other rewards things where you get the little stamp for every time you purchase something. But this one is every $10 that you spend, you get a stamp. And so I've already spent like $40 because that was like 30 on its own. Eye of Darkness. It's an expensive book with tax. And then I forget what the $10 one was. But yeah, I'm already like 4 stamps in out of 10. And then I think you get $10 off afterwards for your next purchase or something like that. I forget the exact reward, but you get something. And so that's one of the things I've been doing. I did figure out how to do the Minecraft game.
Oh.
So I had to...
What dark magic did you have to do?
So it turns out I had to, instead of using the Java version, I have to use the Windows version, which means I had to switch my launcher entirely for Minecraft. Because for some reason I couldn't launch Windows Minecraft from the current launcher I had. So I had to get rid of that launcher and get the Windows specific launcher that also has the Java one as well. Anyways, once you open it through the Windows one, you can go to the store. And it was like $10 to get the DLC. Which is about what we calculated. I think we said it was going to be about $10.
Yeah, it was going to be like $10 to $15.
Yeah. So not a bad, and I played a little bit of it. It's not bad. You start off at because they show in the trailer that it's like during the Clone Wars era, but you start off as a youngling who you go through the Ilum thing, and then you jump ahead a few years to the Clone Wars, where you're now a knight, and you go on different missions for the main Star Wars Jedi masters. So Yoda. Surprise appearance from Kelleran Beck. So the Jedi Knight, the Jedi trainer, the one that's from the Legend of the Hidden Temple Jedi show, the Jedi Temple Challenge. The one that's played by Ahmed Best, Jar Jar Binks. The one who saved Grogu in Mandalorian. Because they flash back and show they finally showed who saved Grogu, and it was Kelleran Beck. Because everybody was like, who saved him during Order 66? It was Kelleran Beck. So, surprise appearance from Kelleran Beck in the Minecraft Star Wars game. Is it canon? I don't know. Are we going to play it together? Maybe. Because it is multiplayer. Because it says you can set up your own server with the adventure.
Maybe. Who knows?
So, I think the only question would be whether or not Chromebook version of Minecraft is compatible with... I don't know if you can play on the Chromebook with people that are on PC.
Maybe, maybe not.
Like, that's a good question, I think.
Good, good question.
Because I know Minecraft for the most part is cross-platform.
Mm.
Like I know, like if you're on Xbox, you can play with PC. I don't, and same thing with I think the PlayStation version. I think the PlayStation version can also interact with the other ones. But I don't know about something like Chromebook because I feel like that's similar to the
Yeah.
Android Like I feel like that's almost a mobile version where it's gonna be a completely different like system. Um, we'll find out because if you can't, try installing it. I guess when you get the chance,
Okay.
and then I will pay for the DLC for you. It'll be like SWOTOR all over again, where I pay for your account and then you get to play.
Oh man.
Which we should play SWOTOR again because
Yeah.
I think you had fun with it. We just were rushing everything that you didn't get to like.
Go go go.
Yeah, because for when we did the SWOTOR review, I was just like, okay, we got to get to the new content, so you got to finish going through this old content, and you're like, what is the context for this? I'm like, don't worry about it, let's go.
I remember I shot some lady who I think had clones. I'm not sure.
And you were like, what's the context of what's going on? I'm like, you don't need to worry about this. This is the last content. We're going to the new content.
I'm like, what do you fucking mean? Why did I go on like a fucking raid bender against like this Republic battle station?
uh
Just got. I remember there being like a weird galactic like news interview where I was just like, because I think like I the storyline I had picked. I remember trying to play Imperial Agent,
mhm.
but I have no context as to what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, because Imperial Agent is you. That's just Seth.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't understand anything that is happening right now.
But yeah, so I'll buy the DLC. I assume you already have Minecraft on your Chromebook.
I don't.
Oh, then you might have to buy Minecraft as well. We'll figure that out. We'll
Yeah.
figure it out. But yeah, so that's mostly. I mean, I played a little bit of it. It's fun. I will say the platforming is hard
Ah, great.
because it's Minecraft. It's a platformer. Like because Minecraft has always kind of been a platformer. It's just not like
Just a little bit.
it's not a Minecraft platformer, but it's like you still have to be able to make certain jumps and stuff to get places. And here it's a little bit harder because they added the double jump for the force jump. And the timing on it, you have to get just right to kind of get the jumps that you want. And I'm just like the first couple jumps where they had to do specific jumps, I was like, I'm hitting it twice. And I was like, no, you're just hitting it too fast. You got to tap it and then tap it. You can't like, which is what I'm used to in a game with double jumps. Like most games with double jumps, you want to just tap it that fast to get that extra jump. But there it's like, and even then, if you wait too long, then
It's just a normal jump.
yeah, and so it's just like so it's like very specific on the timing, and so but outside of that, and combat's not
Great.
combat's a little hard too. It's good combat because it's Minecraft, so you got your block. They added blocking and all that, and so it is that, but it's tough because one of the challenges. So one of your first things after the time jump is you play as you basically have the 5 masters that you have to talk to do like specific missions with, and Kelleran's one of them, and then Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, and then Anakin and Ahsoka have one as well. And so you talk to Kelleran, and his is, hey, go train with these other Jedi and basically improve your combat skills. Except you're not allowed to use any of your force powers, so you can't do force push, force pull. So you just have your lightsaber. You can do your double jumps and your running, but you can't do like any like specific like push pull type stuff or pick up, because there's also like just pick up with the force. And so far those are the force powers I unlocked, but I think there's more if I play more. But man, the combat is hard with like and it's a good challenge, but it ended up to where I was spamming the double jump, or I was just running past somebody and basically pulling a like I'm jousting. I'm just going and then turning around and going, okay, do it again. Because basically that was my best bet of having the AI not hit me.
Oh, man.
because the bots are really good at hitting you even when you're blocking, and you only get so, which might have been a more difficult choice, but that's my choice. I made it. Let's
Yeah.
go. But yeah, so we'll find a way to play it because I think it'll be fun because it is I've had a little bit of fun with it already, and I kind of like. There's not really a specific story going on yet, but I could see it being a good time. Uh, what have you been up to?
Well, no. I got done with Gorgon last time. That was the second playthrough of that.
Mm-hmm.
Went and I played through Murder on Ariadnos. Did not expect a giant brain slug, but it's dead now. Don't worry about it. Halcyon Helen. There's a lot of stuff I would like to cover, but we're already kind of late today, so I'm gonna skip past that. I'll talk about it more next week. I went and because I was like, you know what? I've done pretty well. Got paid decently. So I was like, how about and I was talking with John like last Saturday and he's like, you probably like the like Remnant from the Ashes series, Seth. And I was like, all right, John. I'm
He's.
gonna trust you on this because your recommendations are either really good or really bad.
I'll say I don't want you to tell me yet. I'm gonna guess you do like it because it does. It's very Souls like, but it's gun combat.
I've been enjoying it so far.
Yeah, and there's. So are you playing the first one? I guess right now.
I am playing the first one.
Yeah, because
And
the
I've
second one recently came out.
yeah, and I've got like the DLCs installed and such because I was like, it's like, hey, you could get the base game, or you could get this pack that's like on sale for cheap for like not $40 and instead for $16. So I was like, huh, I wonder which one I'll choose.
I mean,
What about this one?
sounds like you got lucky though that you got into it just as there was a sale going on.
Yeah. And I was like, all right, cool. I will say that while it is a fun game and I have been playing it on my own because I just don't like to always play like multiplayer games, this game was definitely not designed for you to play on your own.
Yeah, it's not, and that I remember that being a big complaint is that it's very much designed for you to play with somebody
Yeah.
else. And I think two also has. I think it's less of an issue, but I think they still have that issue. Um,
Like you can, and I've been pretty
I
good.
just heard it's tougher. Like
It's hard, but
it's not impossible.
it's not impossible. As my requisite standard for games, it can be difficult,
Yeah.
but it can't be impossible.
Yeah.
The most frustrating game like I ever played was like Sniper Elite Ghost Warrior.
But Sniper Elite is like
You would think.
Sniper Elite's always a difficult franchise. No, that's what I was gonna say. I wasn't gonna say it's your type of game, although it's almost. But they've always been notoriously
Yeah.
difficult.
I beat that one. It took me like 4 months.
They're also notoriously gory because that's what a lot of people really
Yeah.
liked about them. They're like, oh, you can see the brains as it explodes when you.
Let me tell you, by the end of that game, I didn't give a fuck
Yeah.
how gory everything
Yeah,
was.
after a while, like it's not really being desensitized. You just get bored.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I've seen this animation like 20 times now.
You know they have fucking tripwire explosives in that game?
And Sniper Elite.
Yes.
It's really weird.
Not for you, mind
Yeah.
you. You have to sneak past them.
I was gonna
and
say
that's
the whole point of the game is that you're a sniper. That's the whole point. It's in the name.
But in regards to Remnant, I went and I've been like exploring the ruins of the world, and I'm like, man, we did not make it past as human society did not make it past the 60s.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Uh, which that also reminds me of a game I've been playing, which YouTube channel knows about, Demon Souls.
yeah.
And I can't talk about it for the YouTube channel yet because it's not gonna that episode's not coming out for a little bit. But you know,
I
there's
know.
a fight that I've been like frustrated
Struggling
with, and I finally won that fight. There is a cheesy way to do it, and I didn't do that exact cheese
Hmm.
strat. I did switch over to magic. I've been doing a more melee based build for
Yeah.
the most part of that game of the run. But I did switch to magic for this particular fight. In fact, I am now. I can actually pull up my stats because I took a picture.
Mm.
Uh, I changed like my whole build is like some people are gonna go, "What the fuck is he building in Demon Souls?" Um,
All right.
I've got I'm at level 95
Okay.
because I've been grinding and this isn't secret. It's the ritual path
Mm-hmm.
where you kill that witch and you can just shoot her with arrows and it kills her and it kills everything she
Yep.
spawns for 4,000 souls each time you do it.
Hmm.
Um, almost 5,000 depending on like because like you'll go up almost 5,000 depending, but it's usually around 4,000. Um, so my vitality is at 30, so I've
Okay.
maxed that essentially because you can go higher, but after 30 you're not
And
retain.
diminishing returns.
Yeah,
and
it's
all
diminishing returns. Yeah. I've maxed out strength at 30 as well,
that. Mm-hmm.
and I've maxed out magic at 30.
Okay.
So that's what I went in with this fight, and then I got 24 intelligence, 24 endurance, 14 dex, 10 faith, and 13 luck because I was dumb and I put some points in luck before I found out that luck is the bullshit stat.
No, put all of your points into luck. Nothing else matters. Min max your luck.
I mean, you do get stuff in return for luck, but it's incomparable to if you put it in a different stat. And luck, and it's also not what luck claims that it's gonna do. Luck says when you highlight it, it says it increases the chance your odds of things that you pick up.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not true because pickups are predetermined in Demon Souls. You can't change your odds when it's predetermined pickups. Your loot will not change. Um, it does increase some of your stats in the background, but once again, it's you might as well go use that points into something
Yeah.
more focal.
I think you're a quality build.
So, oh, like based on my stats.
Yeah.
And so,
Because they're all kind of like even-ish.
which is the type of builds I normally do. I try to be like evenish because I like to. I'm very much one of those jack of all trades type builds whenever I play RPGs, just because I don't want to miss out on things, and I'm just like I want to try that. I want to try that. And here it's because I have to if I'm gonna win these fights because this particular fight, the stronger your character isn't gonna make a difference because that particular boss can basically kill you in 2 hits.
Yeah. There's going to be another guy later on in this game that's going to piss you off.
Yeah. Well, I already defeated the Dragon God. So.
No. It'll piss you off for a very different reason.
Yeah. I already defeated the Dragon God, which was actually. It was annoying but easy because you can basically cheese that fight.
Mm-hmm.
And so. Also, I got the Dragon God sword, the Buster sword, because I did manage to have that as a pure white what's it
Soul
called?
tendency.
Yeah, soul tendency for that.
Which I'm not even.
Because that's the only way you can get the Dragon God sword.
I'm still not sure what soul tendency does.
It basically just lets you unlock things, or
Yeah.
like so.
Like if you have it one way or the other, different things will be unlocked.
Yeah,
That's about it from what I
although
can
there
remember.
are some consistencies, like where certain things will unlock no matter which end you do. Like the gate for the first world unlocks no matter which version you get, because there's that gate right there when you first go into
Boletaria.
Yeah, Boletaria. And so there's that gate right there on the left that's locked immediately, and you're just like, but I see on my map I can go there. There's things over there that are shiny. Why can't I reach them? And then you find out, oh, you have to have a full world tendency one way or the other to unlock that. I think it decides the enemies that are past there. I don't know specifically. I did a light one-on-one run for that area and then a dark one this run, but I'm trying to clean up Boletaria now because I'm like, actually I want all.
I want it.
I want them all to be
It's mine.
good. I want good tendencies on all
Yeah.
the worlds. And so the big trick is do not go into any of the worlds with a body.
Yeah.
Cause,
It may seem like a good idea, but do
Cause you
not.
think, oh, I got double my health, but then there's a few things that are gonna set that back, which behind the scenes after I've defeated that boss,
Mhm.
I started farming again and I forgot to get rid of my body. And because what you want to do is you want to kill your body in the Nexus. Because the Nexus has a world tendency, but it doesn't affect anything.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't track, like, when you look at the world tendency for the world tendencies, the Nexus is not one that you can see. It has one, but it's just not a stat that's important, even for
Yeah.
the trophies. Like, the trophies, you still get the trophies even if Nexus is down the shitter.
Mhm.
Because you don't know Nexus is down the shitter.
Yep.
Unless you're purposefully doing what I do, which is lose your body in the Nexus. uh, but what happened is I started farming again, and immediately, like after a few farmings, and I started reloading the world, I got a fog cloud appeared, and I couldn't reset the world, and I was like, why can't I get to my bonfire? What's going on? And I forgot about spawning enemies from the internet.
Yeah.
And that only happens if you have a body.
Yep.
And you're online. You have to be online.
Mhm.
So I was online because I had my PlayStation Plus reactivated.
Mhm.
Because you can play it offline if you don't pay for PlayStation Plus, you can still play the game. You just don't get the online
Yeah.
features. And then next thing I know, I'm walking around. I see Jackal over there. I'm like, no, it's not you. I didn't piss you off. Because, like, I've purposely not pissed you off this run. Because I want you to go back to the Nexus to sell me shit. Um, I don't want you to try to kill me and toss me into that pit. Um, or me have to kill you.
Yeah.
And so I walked around, and the next thing I know, I see blah 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 has summoned in, and I'm like,
Yep.
and then I'm like, that's why the cloud was there.
God damn it.
And so then he kills me, and then he leaves finally after he kills me, and I'm just like,
Were they respectful about it, or was this just like a?
I feel like they were cheating because there were parts where they were really far away from me,
Mhm.
and I would be like this, almost this far away, and they would still hit me. And then if I tried to hit them, it just didn't happen, even though I'd be like this close to them.
Mm.
And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? And
Were they
so
rolling or just like standing?
they were
there?
just standing there menacingly. I think it was a bot. I think it was a bot one. I don't think it was an actual one because the Souls games do like to do bot ones every now and then.
Yeah.
So like Elden Ring does it a lot because you'll go to specific spots and you'll run into
Yeah,
them.
there are specific like invader type enemies there.
And I think I've hit one there. It's just I've never been online in that zone, and so they were like, "Oh, he's finally online in this zone."
Fuck him up.
And so, but unlike the other Force ones, if I respawned, it didn't come back. So,
Yeah.
because normally you have to still kill it later on. Like you have to kill them eventually for it to count.
Yep.
Like Elden Ring does that. You have to kill them if you want them to stop spawning.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I'm having fun with the game though now. I'm probably next gonna try to get 30 in either intelligence or endurance. Because I want to have that well, endurance is my rolls.
Yep.
But currently I can roll pretty easily. I'm showing him what I've got. Which is I've got a huge ass Buster Sword and the big purple flame shield.
Mm.
I can roll, fast roll in this.
Oh, well, that's good.
And so, yeah, which is not what you should be able to do in that game.
Hey man, whatever works.
But I also have a Ring of Strength.
That might help.
I've got a Ring of Strength, and then I've got the one that heals. That slowly heals you over time. And then I just bought for 60,000 souls the one that does magic. That's the magic version of that healing ring where you just get your mana back slowly. because I was like, I need some mana because for that fight, I brought him down to, and this is the last I'll talk about the game, and we'll move on to Star Wars news.
Mhm.
I brought that boss down to a little over half health because
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I built my character out pretty well. I think I'm ready to do this magic build attack with him and do toss fireball at him. That's what I ended
Mhm.
up doing. I was like, I got fireball ready. That's taken up 2 of my 4 now magic spots. It was 3 at the time. Now it's 4. And I was like, so I should be good. Fireball is pretty expensive, but it's also very powerful. I think I should be good.
Mm.
I might run. I was debating. I was like, I'll probably run out of magic, but I might be able to get like far enough in to get him with the sword afterwards.
Yeah.
I got him a little over half health left, and then I ran out of magic, and I was like, okay, I'll just use my sword. I got like 2 hits in, which got him to half health, and then he got me. And then I said, okay, well, I guess I'll buy some, their version of ethers, spice.
Mm.
I kept forgetting what it was called in the game too while playing. I was like, what's it called? And then I bought it, and I was like, oh, spice, because each game calls them like different things, and I don't think all of them are spice.
I don't think so. No.
I think Demon Souls is the only one that calls it spice. Actually,
What do they do?
it just it's ether. It's an ether. It gives you your MP, your magic pool.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So it's an ether just like any other RPG. You got to have your health potions and your ethers and elixirs, which are both. Although I don't think Demon Souls has an elixir. There's no like heals your health and your magic.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the Soulsborne games do actually.
Not until later.
But that is a RPG trope is to have your
Yeah. Health,
mana and both
Yeah.
healing items or restoration items actually would be
Yeah.
I guess the best term since you're not healing your magic, you're restoring
Heal
it.
your magic.
So yeah, I was like I need my magic restoration, I guess. So I bought like all the magic restoration that I could with the souls I had on hand cuz I was like I managed to get back to where the boss fight was, and I was like, oh, I forgot. I have to get back into the arena to get my souls back. That's okay. I just got like 8,000 souls from getting back to this point. I'll just spend that on the spice. And so I spent all 8,000 on the spice. Went back to the fight, got my souls back from the fight I lost cuz I didn't die in between dying to the boss and then getting back to him even though I left. Turns out you can leave the world, go back to the Nexus, buy stuff, go back to the world where you were fighting, and your souls will still be there. That's good to know. As long as you don't die.
Yep.
So, because if you die twice, then you lose.
They go away.
Yeah, then they go away.
Go bye-bye.
Yeah. Just like Jedi, because Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor use the Soulsborne logic of a lot of stuff. I think they take the good stuff and leave out some of the more difficult stuff that makes the game a little bit more of a struggle. Whereas, so I think Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor are baby's first Soulsborne, and then Elden Ring is probably your next step. If you like Jedi Survivor and Fallen Order, you'll like Elden Ring, and then if you like Elden Ring and you start to adjust to the difficulty of that, then you can play another Soulsborne game. And Demon Souls might be a good option because it's the first technical Soulsborne game. Well, Kingsfield, but
yeah,
it's the first official Soulsborne game because Kingsfield would retroactively become one because it wasn't given the Soulsborne title until then. But I beat that fight using like I managed to get him back down to half with magic with the fireballs, and then I was like, oh, I have these now, and so I was just chugging spice, and that fight makes it a little easy to do it because really without giving away too much of what I did, you can basically kite him pretty easily to where like if you time your rolls and you're running right, you can avoid his slashes. It's the thing that the Soulsborne games trick you with, which is that if you roll into the enemy, you'll actually avoid their attack.
Yep.
Because that's the thing. Everybody's like, why would I roll into their attack? Why would I go towards the attacker?
I'm gonna be real. It's kind of fucking me with Remnant a little bit.
Oh, is it doing the reverse?
It's doing the opposite.
So you want to get away
Yeah.
more often than not, yeah. Which is what technically is correct.
FromSoft saw that was like, fuck that, get in there.
As long as you do a roll, or even if you run just fast enough,
Yeah.
you can avoid a swing at you. But you have to like turn off the lock on feature for that to work right. Because if you're locked on, then you'll stare back at
That's
them.
another thing that's been fucking me up with Remnant. There is no lock on feature.
Which lock on is useful, but once again, in the Soulsborne games, anyways, if you're having to roll into an enemy, you want to turn it off because the whole point of you rolling into the enemy is to then go immediately past them and away from them, which you can't do that if you're locked on. If you're locked on, you're just gonna you roll into them and then turn right back towards them.
Just be so.
But yeah, so I guess that's what we've been up to. We're both kind of been playing Soulsborne type games, and I saw a really fun one because there's a guy I watched that and I think you watched his videos as well.
Yeah,
we talked about
it's been a while though since I've like looked at anything from him.
But he does these quick reviews and gameplays of like 20 different Soulsborne games he finds on Steam, and he's had like 60 parts now of this because he's just like consistently finding more. But there's a really good one that's coming out that's from the same studio as another one that he reviewed, and he was like, right now it's only in beta and alpha, and you can play like a demo version of it, and it's you play as a hermit crab, and instead of like a normal shield, your shell is your shield, and depending on the shell you have, it does different abilities during the combat. So like there for the first boss fight, you get into a fight that's almost like a samurai fight where this guy has like where the crab enemy has like uh has the sticks, the chopsticks as like a sword.
Okay.
And the shell you can find during that fight is you can pick up sushi rolls and make it your shield. And the special ability with the sushi roll is you can eat your own shell, the sushi roll, and it gives you back health. But of course, you lose the shell depending on how much you're eating it. So, and then there's other ones like you can find a soda can, and the special ability with that is that it has some of the carbonation in it still, so you do like a little carbonated bubble attack. So it looks fun. It looks fun, and it's a lot of platforming and stuff like that, and so it's a platform Soulsborne, I guess, but it's using the environment really in fun ways and being very creative, and it's hard still. The combat it's still Soulsborne, and like there's still some difficulty to this, and you still have to time things right, but it looks fun. So I might invest into that one because it's from a small studio and it looks like a fun game, and people are creative, man. Oh, the good news thing. There is one more piece. I keep forgetting about this. I talked about this in the Discord privately because so I've been doing my RPG based on my books. And of course, we talked about me releasing the system reference document. But I've been working on trying to finally publish I want to at least publish the complete core rulebook. If not the beginner adventures as well. I would ideally like the beginner adventures to publish the same day and be able to go get the core rulebook, then get the beginner adventures and have all that. And there you go. And you get another beginner adventure for free because I'm taking the Fantasy Flight system for their beginner box where you get the paid for beginner box and then you get the free continued adventure as a PDF because I liked that idea of like, oh, I have 2 adventures.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a continuation of the previous adventure. But the core rulebook also has its own adventure, and we've played all 3 adventures that I've written for this system on the channel when we did the playtests years ago. The one that the core rulebook has is actually the 3rd adventure we played, and that's the one that you did your crazy shenanigans with as Sylvester.
I didn't do anything wrong.
No.
Although
but you rolled, you got insanely lucky with the rolls too. I think they had to use some hero points to help you
I had just enough to keep me from dying
Yeah, I think.
because I hadn't spent them on anything.
Well, I also think some of the group offered some
Yeah,
too. I think it was a group effort on that one because I think even Josh was like, "That was too cool. Here you go."
they're like, that's an insane solution to this plan.
Um, but I, in order to get this book to completion, I need a lot of art. And one of those sets of art that I finally paid for,
Mm.
thank God for Fiverr, um, is the battle maps. So, because I wanted to have some nice battle maps to go with the adventure, because I was like, oh, I want to give the players like an idea of the places that they're fighting. We did Theater of the Mind
Yeah,
at the time because I was like, y'all kind of no, I drew out some of them.
yeah. Some of them were
I
good.
roughly sketched. I was like a very rough sketch, but a lot of them were Theater of the Mind, and so, but I found somebody on Fiverr. She's really been helpful so far. Um, we made a nice deal where I can use it as commercial because you can do commercial licenses on there, and so you just pay an extra fee because people deserve that because I'm reselling the art you've sold me, and
Yeah.
so fair deal. $55 altogether, before tax and pay and Fiverr taking its convenience fee cut, yeah, and so not a bad deal, and that's with the source files, so that way I can reuse the source files because I would. That's how I am with art. Whenever I buy art from my friends and from other people, I'm like, I want the source files too, so that way I can reuse them for later. So that way I realistically don't have to keep buying art for certain things. That's the realistic side.
You did eventually get that thing I sent you.
Yes, I haven't fully read the third thing you sent me, but
All right, that's fine.
I'd still read like the first couple. I think I read the first page or two.
Yeah.
It's a 5-pager for that one. But yeah, so yeah, I've been planning that. My next step will be I need to do a redo of the galaxy map because I want a really nice looking galaxy map.
Yeah.
And then some careways because we're still working on the comic book. Um, there we go. Now we went from 0 to 4,000.
All right. Well,
Okay, well we're back up.
what is this? A fucking Dragon Ball?
No, because it's not over 9,000. So let's get into
right.
some Star Wars news because there's a few things to talk about. First up, and it's something we talked about a little bit in the car. We start today's news with some High Republic Phase 3 concept art. As the phase begins to be truly underway, this includes some cover art from the mainline comics, as well as character designs for new junior novel leads. The Force comes easily to him, but he struggles with focus and rules. Great potential needs to apply himself is his teacher's main complaint. He's a trickster with a heart of gold. Tep Tep's design is based on a frillback pigeon, the fancy kind with curly feathers. She's a shy, soft, fluffy Alcidian girl who loves animals, especially big carnivorous ones. There's a pack of 5 Acklays who would die for her, and on the cover of Escape from Valo, she's holding a baby Nexu. Jedi don't adhere to family structures, but Tep Tep is basically everyone's little sister. And Gavi was once the most promising youngling of his age, but when the Nihil occupied Lonisa City and murdered every Jedi they could hunt down, he saw the Nameless kill one of his masters. Now traumatized, he's lost the ability to use the Force. He's just trying to keep his friends alive, but the Force has always been the most important thing in Gavi's life, and he isn't sure who he is without it. And then there are his burgeoning romantic feelings for his friend, another youngling boy named Kildo, who we talked about, and his complicated feelings of guilt surrounding Drigget Parse, the non-Jedi friend he left behind. And I will...
Damn, bro. You good?
I will go ahead and show...
Poor boy.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and show the art for that. And then we got some other art as well, but here's the art for that. This is, of course, thanks to Star Wars Newsnet reposting this news. I think StarWars.com is the one that did the interviews and showed us everything. Here's the cover art for issue 1, which is out now. And I've read it's a pretty good start. We got our Keeve and Sarah and Tarek in the back there for some art there. A little bit of that interview stuff. This is George Mann and Cavan Scott talking Eye of Darkness, and Avar and all that. Here's Kildo, Tep Tep, and Gavi, and from left to right. So, baby Nexu. Looks way nicer than I would expect a Nexu to
Yeah.
look. Yeah, and so we got some standalone art. So Gavi, Gildo, which I kind of like the design for Gildo. I really like that, and I like the lightsaber. And then tap tap, and so um, that's some of the art we've gotten so far. And then we also got some villain concept art for this phase. Uh, Once again brought to us by StarWars.com, including Baron Bulin, the now Minister of Advancement, Niv Drenden Upruk, an underling to Baron Bulin, who will be in Escape from Valo, so the book that we just talked about with those three leads, and General Weiss, the Nihil Minister of Protection, who is somebody that I had to remind you who they were, because I had to be reminded who they were.
We were talking about it. I was like, how are they fucking? They're still alive?
So Cavan talked about Bulin, saying he has secret bases throughout the Occlusion Zone, filled with the results of his labor and proud by the sinister children of the storm, who answer only to Markion Row, or do they? And I'll show each one as we. I'll kind of just go back and forth between showing all the art and talking about them, because they did interviews with everybody talking about the different stuff. So this is Baron Bulin. So the way the Nihil structure is they kind of have made and we'll talk about this more when we finally read Eye of Darkness together, but from what I've picked up from reading so far, they basically made their own government, sort of.
Yeah, I was
within
like,
the Occlusion Zone.
When I heard ministry, I'm like, they're doing ministries now?
Yeah, so they've got their different ministries, and so of course, because they got to, like, Markion's always kind of been organized, but
Yeah.
at the same time, they're not an official government body, and that's kind of a thing that's being discussed in Eye of Darkness. Once again, we'll get into more detail. Like, I don't want to spoil too much of it, but that's kind of what's at play. Daniel Jose Older spoke about Niv, saying that he is unfortunately a super genius in the field of demented biological research. A fact about him that Baron Bulin immediately picked up on, taking the young Niv Drendal under his creepy wing as an apprentice back on Vrant Tarnum. The good news is, Niv Drendal is pretty terrible at just about everything else in life. He's not street savvy, his charisma is in the negative tens. He's a mediocre tactician at best, but he's ruthless and sometimes cunning and willing to do whatever it takes to get his experiments done, and that alone has taken him quite far. And so, once again, he's going to appear in Escape from Valo, so the junior novel. So, probably going to get taken out pretty quick.
Yeah.
He's probably the main bad guy for that, and they're probably going to kick his ass, and it'll probably be funny that children beat him. It sounds like, though, he's meant to be a children's antagonist, because, like, it sounds like no charisma, no real skills outside
I was thinking about, like, you're gonna do some evil science shit, and that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, he is working for the minister who's in charge of the science wing, essentially. And then we got Tessa Grattan talking about General Weiss, who we know from the Blade comics, because she was the mercenary antagonist from that. And Tessa Grattan says, Weiss is a ruthless mercenary who's haunted the Outer Rim for decades. It's more like a century. And that's my quote. And has a history of antagonizing Jedi. She didn't need to be recruited to run the Ministry of Protection. She volunteered, earning her place at Rose's side by sacrificing an entire planet to the Nihil. Because, once again, a theme that's brought up about Weiss is that they are constantly betraying people. Because they did that in the Blade comic as well. Because in the Blade comic, they were working for the Thune people, and then immediately was like, actually, I'm gonna kill you guys because I wanna raid the city still, even though you guys want to stop this fight. And so, and then in order to become the minister of the minister of protection, she basically turned over a planet entirely that she was the general of. And she basically was like, well, we're in the inclusion zone. Here you go, Markion, free planet.
Fuck them.
Yeah. And, of course, here's an updated look of her. This is her for Phase 3.
General Weiss, I want my run back.
Yeah. And so, I think it's going to be interesting because something we kind of know and something that's confirmed
Mm.
from reading Eye of Darkness is that uh, Porter Engle is on the occlusion zone side of the wall.
Yeah.
So some interesting dynamics are about to be at play there.
Like, she's still mad about it.
Well, he's not happy either, because
Yeah.
remember, he, like, when he fought her, that was also the last time he saw his not sister.
Yeah.
Because Baresh took her vow of, like, whatever, the Baresh vow before it became the Baresh vow, because it's named after her. um, so that's it for art, which, I mean, I like the art. I like the character designs. I'm excited for the new characters and about the characters coming back. I think we can kind of guess the fate for some of these villains based on context.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean it's not going to be fun reading those adventures and how that happens. Any other thoughts on your end?
I'll wait.
All right.
I'll wait till the comics come out, and then I'll give my opinion.
Yeah. Last time we talked about an award that Jedi Survivor was nominated for with the Grammys. And with the Video Game Awards show around the corner, we're getting news of Jedi Survivor's nominations there, with them having 2 nominations. Firstly, for Best Action Adventure Game, where it's competing against Resident Evil 4, Alan Wake 2, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
That's a lot of
good
competition.
Yeah, I think it's what we talked about last week, where it's like, you can have your favorite, but a good award show should make it impossible to really say, like, what's going to win. Like, because, especially on a good year like this, I think 2023 has been a great year for video games. Because the Resident Evil 4 remake is fantastic. Alan Wake 2, I haven't played it yet, but I've seen some really fantastic things from it. Same thing with Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I didn't really play it, but I've watched a lot of gameplay, and it's creative, inventive, a lot of fun things going on in there. A lot of fun mechanics with their with the magic tech thing that you can do, where you can just build whatever. And Resident Evil 4 I didn't actually play, but once again I've seen the gameplay. I know how the remake is, and I know how people who are Resident Evil fans are reacting to it, and they really like it. So, and Jedi Survivor, I think, is just up there with also just a really good game. Great story, great action, adventure game, good combat. I think they elevated where Fallen Order was, because we talked about this when we did our review for Survivor, but they took what Fallen Order was and said, what can we add to it to make it like... And they didn't do the thing that a lot of games like that would do, which is take away abilities. They're like, no, you keep those, and here's the new abilities you get on top of that, or here's a blending of some of the abilities. Like, the only thing we completely lost was Force Slow, but they made enough things to, like, make up for that, where they were like, yeah, you don't have Force Slow anymore, but here's a bunch of other powers that you get now. And it's like, okay, I get why you took away Force Slow. I don't need it. I wish I had it on something like for the puzzles. There are puzzles where I'm like, God, I want Force Slow for this puzzle, but I managed to solve the puzzles without it, so I guess they designed it right. Secondly, it also got nominated for Best Performance for Cameron Monaghan, Cal Kestis himself, where he's up against Idris Elba for Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, and Yuri Lowenthal for Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Once again, I think good competition. I haven't really watched anything about the new Phantom Liberty content for Cyberpunk, but I've heard really good things. I just haven't sat down and watched anything regarding it, because I've never actually played Cyberpunk, because I kind of missed that boat, because when it came out it was a mess, and then I was like, I'll wait a bit, and I was like, I'll wait to get it on PlayStation once I get my PS5. Got my PS5, never got around to getting it.
Yeah.
And then Phantom Liberty came out, and I'm like, now I'll get it, and then I still haven't gotten it. But I want to get it because I've heard Phantom Liberty, just similar to Survivor, it's just elevated Cyberpunk to where, like, a lot of the issues people had with the base game are pretty much almost non-existent now. And the story for the base game was fine anyways to begin with. It was really gameplay issues.
Yeah.
And
the story is great.
Yeah.
The gameplay was the problem.
Yeah. And I've heard Phantom Liberty fixes that issue, and then the story for Phantom Liberty is insane. I've heard. Um, and then Marvel Spider-Man 2 is I another game on my list to get. I liked the first Marvel Spider-Man, and I've liked the Miles Morales game. I just haven't gotten around to Spider-Man 2. And a lot of our mutuals that I talk to that are big Marvel guys like me, they've liked it and they've said it's really good. So, and Yuri Lowenthal is a key part of that because he's Spider-Man. Um, so I think this is all really good competition. Um, also of note, not Jedi Survivor, but Star Wars Outlaws was also nominated for Most Anticipated Game because they do the Most Anticipated Game every year. And this is running against Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, Hades 2, and Tekken 8. Some of those I could personally take off the list. Like I would personally take Tekken 8 off but I'm also not a big Tekken guy. Like maybe you would keep it on the list.
I'd keep it on the list. You have no.
Is the fan base like that hungry for a new Tekken game?
Tekken is one of those games where it's like if there's a new console out, there's a new Tekken game out, and you're only getting that one until there's a new console.
The rest of those I would keep on the list though, probably. Like Hades 2 is like everybody loved Hades 1, so Hades 2 is just a no-brainer. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, the first Like a Dragon for the Yakuza series did really well.
Yeah.
And Yakuza in general does really well. I mean, it was surprising that Like a Dragon did as well as it did because it changes the combat formula for Yakuza because they go more RPG.
Quest.
They do more RPG elements with the combat where normally normally Yakuza is a beat 'em up.
Mm-hmm.
Like a Dragon is more ARPG.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think not everybody was ready for ARPG, and so people were kind of like distant from Like a Dragon at first. But once it came out, everybody was like, "Oh, this is great."
Yeah, but it's still got like the story is still very much a Like a Dragon Yakuza type story.
Yeah, and this one I think is also a big deal because they're bringing back Kiryu.
Yeah, I think his thing is like he's like, no, I am not that guy. Ignore that.
Yeah, because
I didn't do any of that. Well, I did a little of that crazy stuff.
Yeah,
but like not.
Yakuza 7 Like a Dragon didn't have Kiryu at all. I don't think
it has him as an optional boss fight.
Okay, but he's like not the main because he's not the main character. I know that
he's not the protagonist.
Yeah,
this time I think
he hasn't been for a few. I mean, he hasn't been for a few entries, anyways. Like, there's a few entries where he's not. But yeah, this time he's back as the protagonist, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And that's like why it's a big deal.
I think he stopped being the protagonist.
Round 3.
No, he's not the main protagonist past 3. You are correct about that, but he is a protagonist.
Yeah, because Zero, him and Majima are absolutely and I'd honestly say more Majima.
Yeah, it's like, why was Majima
why is he involved with any of this? Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, that's why.
And really, Kiryu's story is more of like the sad decline of his friendship with, and explaining like why he's in prison for his friend in Yakuza 1.
Yeah.
And then Yakuza 1 is the revenge story of finding out, oh, his friend screwed him over.
Yep.
And also protecting a girl, I think.
Yep.
Because it's one of those lone wolf and a cub type stories.
Yeah.
And then 2 is a continuation of that years later with the girl now a little bit older, from what I understand. And then 3, and from there I don't know the plots.
3, another guy comes back, and so basically all you need to know about Yakuza is it's Kiryu going back to like the clan and solving whatever problem.
Yeah, because the whole
dumbass clan member got them into.
Yeah, because every game Kiryu's like, I'm not into Yakuza anymore, and they're like, hey, we need you to solve this problem or else we'll kill you.
Yeah.
Because you're not one of us anymore. And he's like, fine.
With the exception of 2, which has like a plot point about like secret Koreans and his dad being like, maybe I should have killed them all because if I didn't, we wouldn't be having this problem right now. And it's like, eventually his dad is like, nah, I'm okay with the fact that I let some of them go.
But the reason I know the plots of 0, 1, and 2 decently compared to the others is that's the only 3 I have. Because I have 0, then I have Kiwami 1 and Kiwami 2.
Yeah.
So the remakes of 1 and 2. And I think they did a remake of 3 as well, and then I think they've stopped remaking them so far.
Yeah.
They'll probably remake 4 pretty soon though, because we're starting to hit where it's old enough to where I think a remake is viable.
Yeah. I
Um,
love one of the bits of 4 that I remember is there's like, oh yeah, by the way, in the police station, we just have a bunch of old case files where like we found out about corrupt shit and just put it in the basement. And they just call it the scandal graveyard. Like, why would you call it that?
y'all are essentially catching like the conversations we have off air, like
Yeah.
because we talk about games like Yakuza and Tekken all the time.
I
So
remember,
like,
yeah. I tried explaining Tekken to you while we were like watching something.
we were, yeah.
And I was like, well, this character in this one is fighting them for this reason, but I'm not sure why this one is here because I think they're dead at this point.
Um, but yeah, so I think there's some
Yeah.
good competition for all the awards. I guess for Tekken heads, yeah, Tekken makes sense to be on this list. For me, I
The
think
plot of Tekken 8 is Jin, I have to beat the shit out of my dad.
isn't that most of them?
Yes, but normally it's Kazuya and Heihachi, but we can't do that anymore because Heihachi's finally dead.
Oh, he's dead.
He's dead.
Okay, because he's
Until
come back
they
a
decide
lot.
to get him
Yeah,
back.
until 9 says we're back.
We're back.
Um, but I think the reason I would personally take 8 off, and this is the last I'll talk about it, is I think the other games on this list are bigger beyond just their fan base. Because I think Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is big beyond just the Final Fantasy fans. Because it's finally continuing the remake story. And I think remake brought a lot of non-Final Fantasy people into Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
And Rebirth is a continuation of that, and it's long waited of, oh, now we're gonna get past disc 1 of Final Fantasy VII. And then Rebirth, Like a Drag. Well, that one I could probably take off for the same reasons for Tekken 8, because I think it's a bit, or Like a Dragon, I think Infinite Wealth is specifically a Yakuza fan thing. So that one also I don't think is as big as say Final Fantasy VII. And then Hades 2, that one's kind of a bigger fan base than just Hades fan base, I think.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I know of Hades. I've never actually played it.
I don't know how you'd feel about it. I don't know how you feel about roguelikes. Because it's a roguelike.
A roguelike isometric.
Yeah. So I don't know how you'd feel about it. I don't know. You'd probably be indifferent.
Yeah. I'm like, you can play it, I guess.
Yeah. And then Outlaws, I think, even beyond the Star Wars fan base, I think people are just glad to see.
People are gonna be glad for GTA in space.
Well, also, it's a Star Wars game that's not being done by EA, which we haven't had since 2012.
Yeah.
So yeah. But yeah, that's the video game awards. In relation to Star Wars. Keeping with video game news though. Bit Reactor, a newly formed studio made up of some developers who worked on XCOM and Marvel's Midnight Suns, talked about their partnership with Respawn as they work on a new strategy game together for Star Wars. According to their CEO Greg Fortesh, strategy is the genre with the most room to grow, innovate, and change, and have rich stories and immersive art, and it just hasn't gotten its due. We're not really looking backwards anymore at any of the things we've made. We're aware of them. We know some of the mistakes, so we can stop things ahead of time that would be dangerous. But we have very clear ideas on things we can really, really, really change, so we're excited about that. He also talked about their new cinematic director, who had previously worked on the Gears of War franchise. He just brings a totally different sensibility to all the camera work. He has ideas that I never had, and so for me, I'm just like, throw it all out there, and I'll tell you where to cross the line. I'll tell you where to cross the line, and I'll reel it back in. So sounds like we're really in development for a fun strategy Star Wars game, because we haven't had a strategy Star Wars game in a minute, and I don't think we've ever had a tactical RPG Star Wars game, which is really what XCOM and Marvel's Midnight Suns are. They're TRPGs, they're tactical RPGs. Which I like XCOM, and I want to play Midnight Suns. I haven't gotten around to it. I've heard it's okay. It's no XCOM. is what I've heard. I heard the mechanics of it is good. It's the story that's kind of meh.
Ah,
But XCOM has good both. It's got a pretty good. I mean, I don't know how you feel about TRPGs. If that's really a genre you've.
I haven't tried it. That's what I'll say about the matter.
Okay. Um, XCOM. I like TRPGs. They frustrate me sometimes, but I still don't mind that. A little frustration is okay for me. I'll just turn a game off if I get too frustrated, and then I'll come back to it later usually because I'm like, I still like this game. I'm just losing. And XCOM is a little bit more so because they have the permanent death for squad members because you can lose, and then you get attached to your squad too because you're leveling up. You're like, oh, I'm building this really good build. I've got them on shotgun and all this cool stuff, and then they die, and you're like, now I
to the
gotta,
drawing board.
yep, now I gotta start all over with the new person.
Been watching. This is tangentially
Yeah,
related, I guess. I've been watching a lot of Darkest Dungeon playthroughs.
Oh yeah,
Just every time. I wish, like, if I could change, like, the text notification on my phone, just remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
but yeah, I mean, I like TRPGs. I also like Final Fantasy Tactics, and so.
Yeah.
I like those type of games, so I'd be interested to see a Star Wars TRPG.
Yeah, because I'm not sure how that'd work, but I'd be interested to see.
And with Respawn involved, I think the story and cutscenes are going to look good because Respawn did the cut. Respawn gave us Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor, and they also did the campaign for Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
So.
And new Gears of War guy, let's see what you can do. I
Yeah.
remember playing through Gears 2, and
I was not an Xbox guy, so I didn't play Gears of War. I always grew up a PlayStation and Nintendo guy, so Xbox kind of skipped me. I know about Gears of War franchise and
because of like just the
osmosis,
Yeah.
So cultural osmosis, I know about it through that, and I know about the chainsaw guns and and the deaths of certain characters, and then them coming back in the next game as
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, only under control of the creatures, I think.
Yeah,
And so because they're fighting aliens.
might as well be.
Yeah, zombie alien type creatures. Yep. And so, yeah. So I vaguely know about about Gears of War, but I understand what it is. It's an action shooter type game. So I understand.
It's a cover shooter.
Yeah, it's a cover shooter. Yeah, because you take cover and I've played those type of games. Mafia, I'd argue, is a cover shooter.
I mean, it kind of, yeah.
It's supposed to be.
I need to feed this guy to an alligator.
Well, even the first and second game, the second game especially, I think 2 is the biggest of the cover shooters of those. Which 2 is my entry point to Mafia. I like the Mafia series. I like the main character of 2, as who comes back in 3 as an semi-antagonistic character, depending how you treat him. Because either you are very nice to him or you're not. I think the good ending is being nice to him, if I remember correctly. Because I think you want to be nice to him and one other partner.
Yeah.
Because there is a way for your character to die, and it's by screwing over too many people.
Yep.
Because 3, I think, is the first one where they're like, here's multiple endings to a Mafia game, whereas every other Mafia game's been like a direct storyline, like. And most of them also don't have great. I think 1 is the only one that had like a decent like open world type thing where you can just fuck around outside of the campaign. 2 did not, unless you modded it on PC. And then 3, I don't know if they added back the free drive feature or free ride, which is what 1 called it, because it was like a separate game mode. You had to go to the menu, go to free ride, and then you could just fuck around. Because for the most part, 1 and 2 are very much here's the story, mission. But yeah, so I'm interested. It's a new studio, made up of developers from games I trust and games that I haven't played, but I know of, and I know that they are good brand recognition and they've made good games, and therefore.
Yeah. Do you know them by reputation? Yes.
And I think it's a good reputation.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's been a single bad Gears of War, from what I understand.
No, Gears of War is pretty solid.
Yeah, like there's ones that are less liked, but there's no like bad Gears of War game. Same thing with XCOM. I don't think XCOM has really had a bad XCOM game. Um, and then Midnight Suns might be the only one that's kind of on the end.
It's one of those. It does what it's supposed to do.
We just wish the story was a little bit better.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm interested to see what Bit Reactor's doing. We'll probably not hear about that game for like another year or two, because I mean, it sounds like they're still in early development of like programming it and figuring out the camera work and stuff. That's still further along than a lot of games, so probably within a year. But lastly, for news, with the strike over, Mandalorian Season 4 is ramping production with confirmation from both Katie Sackhoff, Bo-Katan, and Brendan Wayne, one of the two stunt doubles for Din Djarin, who you might recognize the name as being related to John Wayne. Because, yes, he is related to that Wayne. We don't have a confirmed starting date for the shoot, but with a lot of the work that could still be going on without the actors, and for a while without writers during the strike, we should be expecting to hear news and rumors of real momentum in the next couple of months. But they've released photos on Instagram, like basically going like Katie Sackhoff's back in the wig for Bo-Katan, and Brendan Wayne is back setting up like stunt double camp specifically for Mandalorian. So they're like getting ready to like practice the stunts and figure out what they're gonna do for certain scenes. And so,
for starters, we're going to set you on fire.
But it sounds like they're getting like ready for filming, and so probably within Star Wars Newsnet predicted probably around February at the latest is when they should be shooting, and that sounds about right, honestly. But time to get into today's topic. Today we've got the Ahsoka series. Spoilers ahead, as we will be going into spoilers, as we're going to talk about the entire first season.
Yep.
Off the bat, and this is a question I gave you in the car on the way here, because I was like, this is the first question, and I kind of want you to think about it. You've only had one other introduction to Rebels on this show, with the comics from Rebel magazine. So tell me how you believe the first episode does. The first episode, I forgot to say that. I made it the whole show, but let's just talk about the first episode. How does the first episode do with introducing you to these characters?
Sabine, Hera.
Yeah, like how like does to you as a first time viewer, are you able to like understand what's going on with these characters pretty easily, or do you feel like you have to do research after watching it?
For Sabine, no, you don't. For Hera, it's a bit confusing. Chopper's
Chopper.
You can figure that out pretty easily. First episode, don't really have to. Most people already know who Ahsoka is, and if you don't, it's not that big of a problem.
Yeah, because Ahsoka has two shows that that she's been in, and technically three, because she was in Mandalorian season 2.
Yep.
For an episode, which is very important to this show in particular, because it's the episode where she captured.
Yeah, I was like, okay,
but I think
who is this?
The Dathomirian witch, yeah.
Yeah, and why should I care?
I think the later episodes I think are really what count for helping with but I think the first episode there's some stuff where it's like, oh, I kind of need to watch more before I can.
Yeah. You can watch it by itself. It's not bad.
It feels very standalone to you.
Yeah. So I watched this with some people, like I was telling you. I was watching this with Steve and Chris, who watched it when it came out at the time, he was like, yeah, I was kind of disappointed. And I'm like, you got swept up in the hype, didn't you? And he's like, yeah, so I was disappointed while watching it. And I'm like, that's one of the dangers of, like, mass media being like, bam, 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 all the time.
Especially shows like this and kind of the Marvel thing of like, oh, it's all connected, sort of, and you start to get like, especially when you're in our circle of Star Wars fandom, the theory crafting can get dangerous, and it creates unrealistic expectations. And I think if you theory craft too hard and you only are happy if your theory is right.
Mm,
You're watching. I think that's one of the few times where I will say you are absolutely watching media wrong.
mm,
It's one of the few times I will say that because I think outside of that there is no right or wrong way
yeah,
to watch media, but I think that is a wrong way.
yeah. And as we were watching, like, and going through the first and like second episodes, I'm like, the thing that bothers me is like the tone, how it feels like it's you came over to a friend's house and they just got done with a really intense argument with their parent, and neither of them is still over it
Oh yeah.
for like the first 2 to 3 episodes.
So let's actually get into episode 2
Mm,
because I basically wrote these questions basically one episode for one question per episode.
yeah, okay.
Um.
That's your question.
So for episode 2, the show continues the themes from Mandalorian and the New Republic era content in general, of the failures to deal with the Galactic Civil War's end
Mm-hmm.
and accept that Imperial remnants are still active even within the New Republic's higher ranks.
Yeah.
Although in this case, it's their shipyards. In episode two's case, we see the shipyards have been
Yeah,
infected.
they were like, "We're going to Corellia," and my brain immediately went, "Don't fucking go there."
But that's where the big shipyards are. It's
Yeah.
Corellia and oh, there's one other big one. I The comments are gonna get me for this one and other Star Wars for not knowing this. But there is one other big one. Oh, Quat Drive Yards. I forget where they're usually stationed at. But why do you think the rebellion, who is so actively fervent fighting against the Empire, were so quick to turn to complacency? And do you think the galaxy could ever return to a state like we see it in the High Republic era? So I guess it's a two-part question. So the first part is, why do you think the New Republic is complacent compared to the Rebellion? Is the first part, I guess. Because the New Republic does quickly become complacent. Like
Yeah.
we see how fervent and active the Rebellion is in the original trilogy. They're like very active at getting rid of the Empire. But once they become a government body, it kind of
Yeah.
just
I was thinking about it a little bit, and I'm like, I remember like watching the scene where they like go and
later on when they have the hearing.
not not the hearing. I'm gonna stick to
Stick to episode 2.
Yeah. So he says like, "Oh, I'm a businessman," and I'm like immediately like, "Oh, thank God I'm not there. I'd fucking shoot you for saying that." And he's like, "Oh, most people don't care," and I'm like, this is a bad place to be. I'm about to get jumped. Senses are going off the charts, man. And he's like, "Oh, that's autoloader," and I'm like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Why aren't you keeping track of anything?"
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Of course, we learned that it's because he's in on it.
yeah. And I'm like, I. He's like, "Oh, it's classified," and I'm like, "What the fuck do you mean?"
You're talking to a general.
I'm like, but the reason why I think is because like the New Republic really wants to give people a chance, even though it's one of the things where I'm like,
Because the Mandalorian season 3 also deals with this.
yeah, it's one of the things where I'm like, I understand you want to give people a chance, but it's like almost the way that you're trying to give them,
They're speed running it.
you're speed running it, and you're also coming off as very like patronizing about giving out these chances as well. And I'm like, well, no fucking wonder everyone is being like,
Yeah, because we see what happens to Dr. Pershing in season 3. Like he legitimately tries, and then is punished for trying.
yeah,
And then when he decides, well, fuck it, I'll do it myself and go outside the skirts of the law, then he's punished even more.
yeah,
And so there is no right answer for him.
and it's like,
And then that's why people turn back to the Empire.
yeah, it's like if you one are really like patronizing to them and stringent, of course they're going to think maybe I should go back to that fucking like kind of evil place. At least like, yeah, it was evil, it was corrupt and shit, but they weren't treating me like I was a dumbass. As for like it will, like, the galaxy return to, like, High Republic era. I'm like, give it 200 years and maybe.
Okay. So let's go to episode 3 then.
Hmm.
Where we learn the reason Sabine began to take her force training seriously with Ahsoka was because of the Night of 1,000 Tears, which is a major plot point to The Mandalorian, and why the Mandalorian clans are so divided at the start of the Mandalorian era of shows. Is also it also happens to be when Sabine's family died. So, how do you think she would react if she learned uh, they, along with the other Mandalorians who died that day, had essentially been avenged with the death of Moff Gideon, because Gideon's gone now.
Yeah.
So, like, how do you feel Sabine would react now? Because this is after Mandalorian season 3. This, like, season 3 has happened. Gideon's dead, and it still feels like she has that resentment of what happened.
Well, of course, that's not just gonna.
Which is, it's not going to go away. But do you think she would be healed slightly from learning, or do you think that would
Not
just make
really.
things worse?
I don't think it would matter.
It's one of those, she's already kind of started that path, and there's really not a lot you can do at that point.
Yeah. Although I don't get the sense that she's upset about it. I get the sense that
But we learned that's why she started training, because she wanted revenge on the Empire for what happened.
Yeah, but I think at this point she doesn't really care. Not that she doesn't care that her family is dead. I mean about getting revenge.
Yeah. So you think she has moved on from that, despite what, like, Hu Yang and Ahsoka kind of read from her?
Yeah, because I'm like, Ahsoka, you're being real bitchy right now. I'm going to assume that's just because you were a child soldier and you don't know how to be a mentor, considering you, like, skipped out on yours with understandable reasons. Hu Yang,
He's just
you're an asshole.
with some points.
You're an asshole who has a point, which is the worst kind.
I think he's
like, he's very harsh.
Yeah.
But
I don't think it's meant to be mean, though. I think it's more.
I think that's just how they are.
Well, also, to be fair, Hu Yang was programmed like 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Like,
he's like, I've been alive for 1,000 years.
Because we've got the timeline book, and he's like, the Jedi Order is formed, Hu Yang is built. That is, like, the timeline.
Yeah, so he's been around, so if anyone has the right to be, like, upset about how fucked things have gone...
Yeah. Like, there's a reason Ahsoka's like, hey, examine Baylan and Xian's lightsabers, because I don't know who they are, and you've designed everybody's lightsaber.
Yeah.
Except for Sith, obviously, but, like, every Jedi's lightsaber you have been a hand in designing. Which, going back to the Minecraft game, he also has a hand. You get to see Hu Yang, and you get to build when you build your lightsaber. That makes sense. Keeping on topic, I guess, of Sabine, for episode 4, she has to make a tough decision. Either destroying the star map or giving it to Baylan. She chooses to give it to Baylan, so that she can locate Ezra. Knowing the results of her actions from the rest of the season, so you can use the rest of the season in context for this one, do you think she made the right choice?
I was talking about this with Chris and Steve at the time, and
I knew this would be a good question.
And I was like, all right.
Because there's your emotional side and then your strategic side.
I'm like, you came to me one day, and you're like, by the way, I have this, like, treasure map. Yeah, you have, like, a holocron. You're like, by the way, there's, like, some secret, like, super cool thing that we could use to our advantage.
Pull out the lightsaber.
Yep, just immediate.
Just do a Fallen Order.
Nope. Don't need to know.
Yeah.
Like,
although it looks like it takes more than just a swift cut for that star map.
Yeah.
Because Baylan went, and it still
took a sec. But what I mean is, like, during that fight, for some reason she grabs it, and I'm like, you know, you can just go. So I'm more pissed at her because, like, Balin at that point in the fight, he's like off screen, and I'm like, yeah, sure, you could probably jump over there. But if your objective is to stop Thrawn and this thing from downloading,
Well, to not even have to deal with Thrawn.
yeah, yeah, you should just go ahead and try to cut it in half right then and there. But that's more Seth is bitching about things that he knows should just end the narrative. Because if it ends there, we don't have the rest of the show.
Yeah. So
Sabine, I understand like that is a very hard choice, but I'm also like, for my sake, when does Rebels end? And
so Rebels,
like in
so
terms
the main
of years,
so the main
months.
plot so the main plot of Rebels ends, so like season 4's main plot ends just before, like a few months before episode 6,
Okay.
give or take. Or no, before episode 4, because it's, but like they do a flash forward after episode 6. Sorry. So main plot ends before A New Hope starts, because Rebels is all between 3 and 4, and then they do a flash forward that takes place essentially right when Ahsoka starts, because they do the flash forward and they recreated a scene from Rebels, which is when Ahsoka shows up as Sabine's looking at the mural after she's cut her hair. And so that's the recreation of the scene where Ahsoka shows up and is like, "Hey, we gotta find Thrawn and Ezra."
Okay.
And so, uh, so depending on where you want to call the end of the show, do you want to call it when the main plot ends or when? So yeah, Ezra's been essentially missing for 4 years, just 4 to 5. Well, no, because Mandalorian's what, 3 years? How many years after episode 6?
I don't know. You look that up.
Yeah. Hold on, I gotta switch to. Okay, so it's 5 more years after that. So it's 9 years. So Ezra's been missing. Ezra and Thrawn have been missing for 9 years.
I was about to say, I'm like, I understand, like, you really want to see your
friend.
Yeah,
that's a friend.
Friend again. But I'm also like, it has been like 9 to 10 years.
Practically brother, because they have like a sibling relationship.
Maybe you, I'm gonna be real cruel here. Maybe you should get over it.
It's arguably the most Jedi thing to do.
Yeah.
But also, she's a Mandalorian at heart.
That's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because that's not what this type of character does.
Because she's Mandalorian first.
Yeah.
I mean.
So, I also like how Balin fully tells her, like, go ahead and break it.
Do it, I dare you.
Like, it's both that, but also he's like, no, your master's right. That is the best thing to do right now.
He's like, if you want to win.
He's like, I will let you.
But I don't think you'll do it. That's essentially what it comes down to.
It's so great. Because I'm like,
well, Ray, we'll talk more about this, but I think Ray Stevenson is great in the show, and it's very unfortunate that he passed.
Yeah.
Like, he is one of the best parts of the show, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Like, I'm also like, oh, there's like some force whirring in the background of this scene, and I'm like, oh, you're also like fucking with her right now.
Yeah, because the map has to be in the thing for it to upload, and it's out of the thing. So currently they're just sitting there waiting for the map to upload to the computer, and they're like, we can't go anywhere until it does.
So let's hope this works out.
Yeah.
And I'm also like, I agree with Balin and like Ahsoka. I'm like, break it. But I'm also...
But, like, with the context of the rest of the show, does that opinion change? Do you think she did the right thing, or...
Like, as a tactician and as, like, a guy... Sometimes I separate from, like, the show and the emotionality of it.
Yeah.
That's a new word, emotionality.
Emotions.
And where I'm just like, no, they're fucking right. You need to get rid of it.
Okay.
But I understand why you won't. One, how you are, and
to your friendship with Ezra and
your friendship with
blah, blah, blah.
Ezra.
Yeah, there
I
you
was
go.
about to call him
Urza.
Urza, and then I wanted to call him Ezra.
Ezra Urza.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not his name. One of which is a Magic the Gathering character. But I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
I understand why, and I also understand this is an 8-episode show. This is episode 4. We're not gonna ditch it right here.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, on top of that, there's a second season to happen and a movie.
Yep.
And
so if you do it now, none of that happens.
Because obviously, well, also obviously, we want Thrawn to, as an audience, we want Thrawn to come back. Like as an audience, like yeah, it's gonna suck for the main. It's the same thing I've had in discussions about incursions in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, where
like
it's good for the audience, it's bad for everybody in there.
Yeah, and so Thrawn returning to the main galaxy is great for us as audience, especially for the Thrawn stands out there, but terrible for the galaxy.
Yeah. I remember, like, me and Chris also explained to Steve how, like, the threat of Thrawn's return is not a, like, physical threat.
Yeah, it's more of a strategic
It's
threat.
more of, like, a strategic and, like, oh, if we don't get rid of this symbol of the Empire.
That too, yeah. Because Mandalorian Season 3, with the secret little Imperial Remnant group, they made it clear that they don't believe Thrawn's going to actually return, but they're hoping he does.
Yeah.
And if he does, that will just encourage a lot of the warlords to do what they're doing more. It would also affect some plans, though, in a bad way for the Empire, because the Imperial Remnants are just like how they were in Legends, where it's like a bunch of different warlord factions doing different shit, and everybody's kind of hoping to do their own thing.
Without interference.
And, like, we see that with Gideon, where Gideon's whole thing is like, I kind of don't want Thrawn to come back. It would be great for the Empire, but it'd be terrible for me.
Yeah.
Because...
Well, I guess Gideon doesn't have to worry about that now, does he?
Yeah, because Gideon's whole thing was, like, making the ultimate Mando super soldier Jedi character, like, and making it himself. He was like, I want to be the ultimate Jedi Mandalorian.
Yep.
And that almost succeeded.
It almost worked.
But of course, if Thrawn returned, that fucks his plan, because now everybody's going to follow Thrawn and not him, and therefore all of the budget goes to Thrawn. It's the same thing with Brendel Hux and the First Order faction that eventually comes around, because their whole thing is the stormtrooper program where they kidnap kidnap kids and make child soldiers and raise them to be stormtroopers. That's their whole project right now, is doing that and keeping it in the unknown regions, not quite in another galaxy like Thrawn, but like still outside of the main galaxy. And then of course the drilling of Ilum and turning it into Star Killer base. That's all going on right now. Like all of that is happening right now. This is and so part of that is they have to have people within the New Republic, making sure that the New Republic is just kind of disillusioned to the idea that the Empire could even still exist, which we see with Kaz's dad from Resistance, the one senator that keeps the I forget his last
Senator Siono.
Yeah, Siono, yeah.
He pisses me off.
Yeah, like, and I think I don't think he's coming from a bad place.
I think he's a cunt.
I think the way he explains things is absolutely, and
I'm so mad at him.
I think the way he like talks to people is absolutely the worst.
Yeah.
But I think he's trying to do the right thing. He's like, the New Republic needs to like move forward. But the way he's going about it is part of the problem of why the New Republic is like not gonna work.
Yeah.
Because we see it doesn't work. It's destroyed in the sequel trilogy. It gets blown because it doesn't work. The New Republic essentially dies out in the sequel trilogy. I'd say it does actually, because their capital gets blown up along with a bunch of other planets.
Thinking about it, it kind of reminds me of like, this is going to be a weird comparison, but not necessarily an inappropriate one.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reminds me like the New Republic is like the League of Nations after World War One.
Which that is absolutely a way to look. I mean, because the whole point of I think the whole point of the sequel trilogy is showing what happens. I would say it's more of a post World War II than World War One, but it's like the whole
I
premise.
mean, in comparison to like how actually effective the New Republic is.
Yeah, but I think in terms of like also the First Order side, it's showing what happens like on the fascism side as well, of like how fascism can quietly rise back
They
up if you
ramped it up.
like, and it gets worse. It's always
Yeah.
worse than the previous version. It's never, which is also a Lord of the Rings kind of thing
It
as well.
gets worse.
Because Lord of the Rings also has a theme of the bad guy is always worse than the last.
Yeah.
Like the new evil is always greater than the last evil. And so, but the important thing to do is still try to fight it.
Yeah.
And that's the themes of both Lord of the Rings and Star Wars. And it's also reflective of history because once again World War One and World War Two and then post World War Two.
Yeah.
Going into what you're saying, yeah, like the League of Nations,
Like,
yeah.
what the New Republic wants, and I'm gonna borrow like old rhetoric because that's to me is a fascinating time, like the space in between.
Which I think
One
is
and
why
two.
which I think is why Favreau and them are really exploring that.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, what did people want after the first one? Well, they were on a return to normalcy. That shit didn't work. Guess what the New Republic wants?
Yeah.
A return to normalcy. That shit's not gonna work.
Especially because the corruption is still there.
Yeah, because you didn't fix the problem. You put a fucking band-aid over it.
Because the corruption never left after the like the High Republic era was where we see the decline and we see the corruption build. The corruption happens in the galactic, like the Republic during the prequel era, and we see what happens when corruption just takes over.
Yeah.
And then the Empire happens because of that corruption. And then the Empire is filled with that same exact corruption because it's the same embodying government. It's the same figures, just different rules that make it easier to be corrupt.
Yeah.
And then the New Republic is, well, let's get rid of the rules that make it easier to be corrupt, but not get rid of the corruption.
Yeah.
And then the First Order is signifying of like what happens when the fascism that liked the previous fascism are upset that
It's gone now.
it's gone now. Yeah. And how they get even more militant and more active to combat that.
Yeah.
And so once again the whole themes of we still need to fight it actively. We can't just let it exist because while yes, the evil is worse than last time, if we don't deal with it, it wins.
Yeah. We got slightly sidetracked.
No.
Yeah,
That's
it's
all
appropriate.
Yeah, it's appropriate
but
for this.
Also, like we're doing this like question by
No.
question.
And I wrote these, but we can have discussions about certain top. This is just to give us like things to like main pointers to talk about.
All right, next episode.
Yeah, episode 5. So one of the things that I want to delve into, and we talked about this in the car, Anakin's lesson, because there's a lot of debate and discussion surrounding it. What do you think it was? And was the method of its delivery effective to you as an audience member?
I was like,
Because I'll be honest, it took me time and reflection, and only within like rewatching the show this week to kind of put together his message for my opinion of it, of what I think it is. But I'll let you answer first. I don't want to sway your answer.
there are like, for me, there's two things. The first of which, Anakin is once again interfering from beyond the grave. I guess
That's a theme in New Republic era Star Wars. It's
he just loves to do that.
yeah, because we have it with Shadow of the Sith, which we love to talk about because it's such a good book.
Yeah. The first thing that I think Anakin, it's very much like,
Also, is it really beyond the grave? Because Ahsoka's also dead at this point.
she gets better, don't worry. What I understand it to be is like, adapt to the times, Ahsoka, or you will die with the old.
And that's kind of the lesson I got. Like, it took me a minute to kind of put that, like, because the way it's delivered to me is not effective as an audience member. And I think that's why there's such debate about it.
Like, Jedi Order gone. You're not you're not fighting separatists anymore. You're now fighting a different type of threat. This isn't something you can just go and cut in half with a lightsaber. Well, it was, but now it's not. You're facing a new problem. Like you should, it's one of those things where it's the adapt or die,
Mm-hmm.
which I think would be a more appropriate episode title.
I also,
But it's
yeah,
also, like you said, delivered from like a very weird angle. And also, like, you also need to come to the terms with the fact that, like, yeah, I was an evil fucking guy. That's the second half of it.
yeah, I think there's multiple lessons.
There's, as far as I'm,
Yeah,
like, as a viewer,
those are the main
those
two.
are the two.
Yeah,
There are some other ones where, like, I think even Balin and Shin are talking about it, about how she's like, hey, do you miss the old, like, Jedi Order? And he's like, I miss the idea of it, but not the reality of it.
yeah, because especially in the prequel era, that like, which is what Balin and Ahsoka lived in,
Yeah.
that the Jedi was the idea is good, but what they
But
were,
the reality of it is like fucking with them a little bit. And Balin, this is also in like episode 6.
yeah, and it's fine to, yeah, we can,
Yeah. Once again, this is another thing where I was like, oh, what the fuck does Balin even want?
which
And
we'll
it's
get
like,
to that discussion.
that was like the question, and then he answers it.
But it's
in a
also
way.
in such a vague way.
Like this episode was like, my brain is like, here are what they mean to say, and here's what they're actually saying.
Mm-hmm. So, for me,
Mm.
I think it's really 2.5 lessons,
All right.
and almost 3, because like the way that the message are delivered, like 1 and 2, what you say, I think are the messages, but I think that they are like there's like a bonus point between each
Yeah.
one. So like the first one of adapt with the times, and in this case, or die. I think that also can be understood as there's a time for peace and a time for war,
Mm.
for even for Jedi. And I think because we see in the Clone Wars, she doesn't, because they do the Clone Wars flashback.
Yeah.
But with her actively there with her current memories, not with
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I think during that she has to actively, she still wants peace. She's like, we're peace bringers, not
Yeah.
it's the we're peace bringers, not soldiers line that Mace Windu gives, that one in episode 2.
Yeah, we're keepers of the peace, not
Yeah, that
soldiers.
they thank you. And it's that. It's the struggle of we're Jedi, so how do we deal with that? And she was raised in a time of peace, but then she had to become a soldier.
Mm-hmm.
And then she never really stopped being a soldier,
Yeah.
even though the New Republic kind of brought peace again, which means she should be a peacekeeper again, which is what she's trying to be, when in reality she might actually still need to be a soldier.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Balin and Thrawn, because she's not going to defeat Balin and Thrawn if she's thinking on those same terms of being a peacekeeper. And that's not a bad thing. It's just, it's the complication of being a Jedi and being able to.
You are right about that, like, half point, and that other half point is Anakin being like, focus up.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and then for 2, you said, I want to make sure I get your point right. Oh, my brain just collapsed on me. Say your second point again, because I had it.
First one was times are changing. The second one was,
See, even you forget.
fuck me, I forgot. I said it and I forgot.
This is great. There's a like, once again, there's like an underpoint to it that I had, and now I can't even think of that. Oh, that he was a bad like Anakin.
Oh yeah, come to terms with the fact that I was a scumbag,
I think
says Anakin.
I think the underpoint to that is also the lesson that she needs for herself, which is just because you were trained by me does not mean that you will become a scumbag as well. Like, you will not become me.
Yeah.
Because we see Ahsoka struggling with that throughout the show, because like Balin kind of judges her for being Anakin's apprentice, and she judges herself for being his apprentice. And then Anakin's like, no, don't get the facts wrong. I was a bad person, but you are not. just because I trained you does not mean you are destined to
Yeah.
automatically to be like me. So, because like Balin points out, oh, you have similar combat style, you get frustrated similarly, and even Thrawn makes some similar
Yeah.
where he's like, oh yeah, she was trained by that asshole.
It's like, fuck.
Because Thrawn has dealt with Anakin twice
Mm-hmm.
in canon. He dealt with him in, so we get the Treason's flashbacks, which are also we get Thrawn's perspective of those flashbacks in the books we're gonna read next season. Um, and basically that's Anakin, and then in Treason during the main time part of that book, he's working with Vader. So, which of course, being Thrawn, he figures out he's Anakin. He's like, I've worked with you before. I know who you are. Because, like, military strategist who can figure shit out. Because he's basically Sherlock Holmes, if evil. And so, that's why he's like, I got a history with this asshole.
He's like, oh.
Well,
there's no... the thing of, like, him turning to Morgan, and he's like, there will be no negotiating with the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
He's like, that's not gonna work.
It'd be aggressive negotiations, and even then, it ain't happening. But I think, as an audience member, like I said, it took me until recently to really kind of, like, puzzle it in a way that makes sense. Because I think watching it, I think lesson 2 and its underlying message are easier to understand than lesson 1. Because I think the whole the fight me or die thing is kind of a bullshit line delivery, the way it's like, because it feels like, oh, that's the point, and it's like, like the fight or die is it's a cool one-liner, but it's not a great way to get your point across.
I won't fight you. Yeah, a lot of people said that.
Which the most recent one would be Luke. That would be the one that they're referring to, is when Luke said in Return of the Jedi he won't fight him. But yeah, so yeah, I think 2 is an easier one to understand as an audience member on the first viewing, and 1 becomes one that you kind of understand with some discussion and time to think on it. Yeah. Because even you said you discussed it with, like, at the moment you had people to talk about it with. I watched it mostly by myself, with the exception of my family, but I don't get into the same levels of discussion with them. We just watch the show, and maybe I'll explain, like, how it connects to other things, but I won't, like, get into, like, the themes. But yeah,
I don't know, man. I think maybe Metal Gear is a great series for understanding, like, how war changes and how that starts to affect people, and, like, how sometimes, like, that return to, like, times of peace can fuck people up.
Yeah.
And that probably helped me, because I'm, like, going and rewatching some old, like, Metal Gear stuff.
But let's jump to episode 6.
Yes.
So Sabine finally finds Ezra after risking everything. While we may or may not agree with what Sabine did to get there, what do we believe Ezra would think if he learned that Sabine was the reason Thrawn's Imperial remnants were about to leave the unknown galaxy? Because he never learns the truth.
No, he doesn't.
He knows that Ahsoka and Sabine are fighting. He learns that later, like in the next episode. But he never learns the why of it, that Sabine risked so much. And on top of that, like, Sabine being trained by Ahsoka makes their relationship strained as well. Because that's, like, the initial reason why they're not talking. Because Sabine's like, I didn't want to keep training under you. I don't like it. And that's why they initially kind of... And Ahsoka didn't like training Sabine because Ahsoka didn't know how to be a teacher. Which is also part of Anakin's lesson of, like, if you do 1 and 2 of my points, you will be a better teacher. If you figure out how to be a Jedi for your time, you can teach better.
This was another thing that I was thinking about. Anakin's actually a really good teacher. In very much that I will feed you to a shark.
Yeah, he's the Loden Great Storm of approach.
Like, if you weren't born with, like, everyone Like, if people just stopped telling Anakin that he was special a lot sooner,
Or picked him up sooner, also maybe because
maybe.
the his attachment to his mom didn't help
Yeah.
either.
But I'm like, if people stopped expecting as much out of him as they did, that'd probably help. And also, like, man's got issues, but he does, like,
Put him through therapy, man.
yeah.
Give
He
him
does.
forced therapy because that man will not go to therapy himself. Why?
No. But, like, he's a good teacher in the sense that I imagine he does deeply care for his students.
Well, yeah, to the detriment maybe because
Yeah.
we've discussed this that I think. Well, I don't know if we discussed this. I know I've discussed this in general, but I think he fails the final test in Clone Wars for season 5
Mm.
when because the whole point of them giving him Ahsoka was to see how he reacts when you have to finally let go of your apprentice.
Mm.
And I don't think he reacts the way that he was supposed to because he's still super attached, and when she leaves, he follows her still to try to talk her into staying. And that I think that's his failure, and why he doesn't gain the rank of master in episode 3.
Mm.
I think that's the main point, is that he still has these
In
attachments.
defense of Anakin.
Well, the reason she left is bullshit. I agree.
Yeah,
But
it's complete
she
and utter
but
nonsense.
but she still chose to leave.
Yeah.
Which means he should have respected her decision, whether or not he agreed with it.
Mhm.
And that I think that's because even Yoda and Obi-Wan and them, they're like, we don't want you to go. In fact, we're pulling a Zane Carrick, Knights of the Republic. You were framed for murder, and now we are going to grant you the rank of knight now that you've proven your innocence. The fact that happened twice in Star Wars.
Yeah. I understand why Anakin wants her to stay, because that's his not daughter.
Hmm.
I love how we like moved on from terms like Padawan to just not daughter
Yeah.
not friend or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I understand why Anakin does that. I also understand why Ahsoka explains to Anakin, "Hey, I've got to leave," and that's the end of that.
Yeah, because if they
I
don't
also-
trust me, I can't
Yeah.
stay.
I also remember that time Anakin beat the shit out of Obi-Wan because he thought Obi-Wan had hired a...
Once again, proving
Where it's like, no, Anakin's right about this. This is a fucked up thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of, like, shady shit that keeps happening to where it's like, well, no wonder. Like, I understand why you guys did this. Like, once again, it's the
This
separation of tactics and emotion.
This
for
is a
me.
case where probably should have told Anakin.
Yeah. Like...
Because Anakin can keep a secret.
Yeah.
He's been married to... He's not great at that secret, actually, though. Actually, no, maybe don't tell Anakin secrets, because that secret is a terribly kept secret. Like, Rex knows, Obi-Wan knows. They don't know that it's as far as married, but they know...
They know.
Like, they know
Like,
Anakin and Amidala are hooking up, at least.
Rex and Obi-Wan are the two people that would make sense, would have figured it out
Well,
by now.
we know in Brotherhood, Obi-Wan figures it out immediately.
Yeah. But Obi-Wan...
He doesn't know marriage, but he knows, like, that they're hooking up, at
Yeah.
least.
I like how Rex covers for Anakin when Obi-Wan asks. Like, Obi-Wan knows, and he's like, oh yeah, by the way, tell Padme I said hi. But it's also the fact that Rex tries.
Mm-hmm. But going back to Ezra,
Yeah.
how do we think he'd
think-
feel? Knowing the truth.
I don't think he'd be pissed about it, but I think he'd be kind of like...
Disappointed?
Yeah, disappointed. He's not, like, gonna be angry, but he's like, you probably should have.
Because I think... I have the context of Rebels, but I think he's come a long way from where he starts in Rebels to where he is in Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Part of that could be because he's been, stranded on this planet for 9 years. But I think he's found... I think even by the end of season 4 of Rebels, he's kind of understanding his place as a Jedi.
Mhm.
Like, he makes an ultimate sacrifice at the end of Rebels because he does the Space Wells plan with Thrawn, which is why they're in the unknown galaxy on Paradia. Like, they're there because Ezra sacrificed himself, essentially.
Yeah.
Because he didn't know if he'd come back.
Sabine's comment of always a plan, it's never a good one.
Like, yeah.
Is that the general vibe for
Yeah.
most of Rebels?
Yeah,
There's always a plan, but it's not great.
and at least in this case, this might be his ultimate, like, not great
Yeah.
plan, but in a way, it does everything that it needs to because it brings peace to Lothal. It, you know,
He banished himself and thrown to the Shadow Realm.
essentially. And then he was like, "Oh, and Sabine, you'll get to find me once everything's settled."
Yeah.
So he's like, "Don't worry about it. I trust you to find me."
Mm.
And of course, I think that's also why Sabine makes the choice that she does, because for 9 years she's had this weight
Yeah.
of it's my job to find him, and she hasn't done it.
Yeah. Doesn't help. Like, do you think she's like replayed that video every day just to make sure it stays fresh?
At least once a year.
Yeah.
At least a
Like every.
I would think every anniversary of Ezra being lost.
Yeah.
At the very least. Because she seems like the type to go full emo, and
Yeah.
to be fair, I mean, the very first episode, she's like, I don't want to go to the celebration of our independence.
That reminds me, I was very amused.
That
by,
Mr. Krabs is there.
No, by like the interaction of like, hey, you person famous for disobeying the government, start obeying the government. And I'm like, well, that's not gonna fucking work now, is it?
No.
What did you think was gonna happen?
And then
fuck off, leave her alone.
And then she pulls a full Kira.
Yeah.
Sliding right under.
Woo.
Speaking of Peridia, though.
Yes.
Ahsoka finally arrives there in episode 7. So with most of Star Wars taking place in the same galaxy, how does it feel finally expanding outside of the worlds we know and seeing something that I know for me personally, I've only dreamed Star Wars would do in canon? Because we're finally outside of the galaxy far, far away. We're now in a different galaxy, even further away. Or closer, because they never tell us for our perspective where it is. We know it's further away for them. We know it's far enough away that they're like, we have to put 8 hyperdrives together to get there.
Like,
they basically did the Star Wars equivalent of, let's duct tape a bunch of engines together.
I mean, I'm okay with it. I'm like, I guess we're in wild space.
We're even past that. We're past that because wild space, we know wild space. Wild space is still weird, but we're in a different galaxy.
Yeah. I'm like, okay.
Because they make that clear. They make that very clear that it's a different galaxy. And we only see one planet from this galaxy because...
Yeah. I'm fine with it, I guess.
I am curious about the adventures in this galaxy, at the very least. Like, because somebody... I was watching our friends, the Padawans, who are back with their podcast as well. And they had their first episode back, which... They've changed their format. They're not doing, like, recaps of shows now. They're kind of just talking about whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of like what we do at the start of the show, except that's their whole show now. And so they were talking Ahsoka, because everybody's talking about Ahsoka now. Now that we can.
Yeah.
And I was reading the comments, and one of them was like, I'm kind of upset that they didn't show, like, any flashbacks of, like, what Thrawn and Ezra were up to on those first years on Peridia. And I'm like, Timothy Zahn will probably take over for that, because they're probably saving that for Zahn to write. Because we know he's got another trilogy planned. We know they're doing he's doing another trilogy of books. And that Dave and John worked with Timothy Zahn for the characterization of Thrawn in this show. Because Zahn's come out and said, like, yeah, the plot, like, Thrawn's whole plot makes sense for Thrawn to do. This all is within his character. Because that is a complaint a lot of people had. And I was kind of worried as well, because to me, Thrawn in canon is not quite as... He still works for fascist government, but he's not as evil as he is in Legends.
Okay.
To me. But Zahn says it all fits his character, so I'm going to trust the man who created the character. And he says this fits, so... And honestly, the way that I could still see Thrawn kind of doing his own thing when he gets back. I could see him going, fuck the Empire, this is mine now.
Yeah, that's the more vibe that I kind of got from the whole thing was just Thrawn is like, I'm so fucking done with this planet. I just want to leave.
Which kind of keeps with the whole warlords thing that we talked about earlier. Like the Imperial warlords are all doing their own thing, and so I think Thrawn's plan is to get out of the unknown galaxy, get back to the main galaxy, so he can then either take over the New Republic or something, build up his forces more,
Yeah.
then go to wild space and deal with the problems that the Chiss Ascendancy are dealing with.
Mm.
Because they still have their problems. The Chiss are still dealing with some, like, their issues. Like, that was the whole point of him joining the Empire.
Yep.
Which the Chiss Ascendancy is also somewhat, like, very similar in vibes to the Empire. It's not quite as fascist, but
it's there.
It's it's like on the line. It's straddling.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was happy to see more of like the universe is growing.
Mm-hmm.
Balin's goals are not.
What do you want?
Yeah, so this is this is episode 8's question.
Mm-hmm.
So Balin's goals are another thing that is being highly theorized on, with things going as wild as Abeloth making a canon appearance, to something more along the lines of the Mortis Clone Wars arc being examined more. So, because both of those are within the same lines of vibes. Like, Abeloth gets weird though, and we've because we've discussed Abeloth vaguely. Like, I don't know every little detail of her because I kind of skipped out on the rest of the Fate of the Jedi books because they did not interest me once Abeloth became a thing and was and plus like Superman Luke. Superman Luke is not my favorite thing in Legends, because Luke can do basically god level shit in Legends, and but the Mortis arc in Clone Wars is probably a little bit closer, where we see Balin trying to like be that balance of the Force, because it seems that he wants. It seems he does not care for the light or the dark.
I think he's at the. This was discussed back with like I said, Stephen Chris.
Yeah.
When we were watching episode 4, and I was like, it happens almost during the same kind of like conversation that he has with like Shin, his apprentice, which.
Yeah, Shien's a fun character too. Yeah. I'm curious. I kind of like where she's set up, because she's kind of set up to be this like raider leader of. Yeah. Because like, the premise at the end of the season is that everybody except Thrawn and Ezra are stuck still on Peridia, because Thrawn, his army, and Ezra.
I want to know what the fuck was in those catacombs that he has on his ship.
Thrawn?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of that is like the art that he's stolen, and because his whole thing, he studies art, and that's how he understands the culture of his enemies, because he examines the culture through its art, and then he's like, like, oh, I know how to fight them now because I know their culture, and so a lot of that is that's his version of being a high rank. That's why he gets the big bucks.
But I'm like, why would he?
Because he collects them. Because he also doesn't destroy the art. He very much is like, I respect the culture.
No, it's not that. It's just that I'm like, if it's just art, then why put so much emphasis on the fact that it's like gonna take 3 days to get it out, kind of deal?
Because he wants to. Because they're gonna need time to get it, I guess.
Yeah, but like, why though?
Because he's not gonna leave it. Because once again, he respects the art. He needs it. He's like me. Instead of books and comics and movies and TV shows, he just collects art. Like, this whole room would be filled already if I was Thrawn levels of collector.
They're like, also the fact that he has like a fucking coven with him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because the Night Sisters, the Dathomirian Night Sisters, which I'm curious where their dynamic's gonna go now that they've escaped with him.
Like, this is alright, cool, I guess.
because I don't know if they'll keep working nicely with each other
Yeah.
once they're, especially when they find out Dathomir kind of got
Destroy.
like there's no Night Sisters really on that side of
Yeah.
Dathomir.
Oh man.
You know, the only one who's alive that we know of outside of the now, well, she's dead now anyways because Sabine and Ahsoka dealt with that.
Yeah.
But the only other one that we know of is, because we don't know their fate yet, is in Fallen Order and Survivor with.
Yeah.
So
Marin is
yeah,
somewhere.
Marin's the only Night Sister we know of who's possibly still alive,
Mhm.
and she's definitely not going to side with Thrawn.
Yeah, no.
So,
Oh, it was cool to see fucking undead in Star Wars.
Yeah,
I was.
it's not the first time we've really seen it, but yeah,
it's not the first time that
it was a
happened
cool.
in
It's
Star
cool in
Wars.
live. I think it's the first live action.
Yeah, it's the first live action one, I think. I was like, yeah. By the way, this was another discussion where I'm like, he has fucking Night Sisters with them. Wonder if they'll bring the dead back to life.
And then next
And
thing,
then Steve's like, they can do that. I'm like, yeah, they can do that.
and then the next scene, it's just like, oh, there it is.
I also explained to him about like the wolves on the Thal, how they can like jump around and how they're about the size of a car. And he's like, well, fuck me, I guess.
That's because their connection to the Force.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Balin seems kind of like just done with this constant back and forth. Though.
Yeah, and so the reason that a lot of people are emphasizing like the Mortis type stuff and Abeloth is because at the end of the final episode, he is on these mountains and there's these carvings.
Big statue.
There's these big statue carvings. One of them looks exactly like the father from the Mortis arc. And there's like, it looks like there's 3 of them, which would be father, son, and daughter. And of course, for Legends fans, Abeloth makes sense for them. It's a little wild it's a little bit wild for me.
It is a wild guess, but it'd be weird to introduce her now, but why not?
Yeah.
At this point.
And also, I feel like Balin wouldn't really be seeking her out.
Yeah.
So at least the Legends incarnation, anyways.
Yeah, so maybe they changed it, or maybe there's probably something else there.
Something that Brandon Darth Chaco, one of our friends on the show, he theorized that it's more of a Kreia KOTOR 2 situation, which is that he's kind of done with both sides of the Force.
Yeah.
And like the Force is
he's
the
so
reason,
tired of this fucking cycle.
The Force is the cycle of conflict, which is what Kreia's whole philosophy is. The problem with Kreia, and the problem that I have with fans that agree with that philosophy, is that Kreia is the obvious bad guy. And she even breaks her own rule because she becomes Darth Treya. I've had this conversation before, though. That's my problem with fanboys that are like, oh, Kreia's philosophy makes so much sense. And they like to think they're philosophers because they agree with Kreia, but they're not.
Me and you both disagree with Kreia's philosophy, but for very different reasons.
I just think she is incorrect. It is proven incorrect. It is proven, at least in canon, it's very much incorrect because the dark side does not become more powerful because there's more light side, but the light side does become more powerful if there's more dark side. And that's something that the sequels deal with and talk about. Because that's the whole reason that Rey and Ben become a dyad. Because the light side is always trying to fix the overgrowth of dark side. Because, and we've talked about that.
Yeah.
And so, I think the Force itself doesn't create the cycle, people do. And I think when people decide to use the dark side, and there's too many of those people, then the light side's like, well, shit, we gotta counteract that. Or the Force, rather, because the light side is not inherently a thing. The Force is a thing. And the Force is like, well, we gotta counteract that because that's not balance. Like, the dark side can't exist, but it has to be through nature. It has to be like, it has to be a natural thing. So death is a natural dark side. Like, because That's just part of life. Death happens. Um, and so that's an example of something that just naturally is part of the dark side. But when you have people controlling the Force and trying to force their own will on the Force, that's when the dark side gets super crazy. And when we get people like Sidious and the Night Sisters, and even then, I think the Night Sisters are like a slight disconnect from the dark
Yeah.
side because they're not really using the Force; they're using their magic, which uses like the way they have to use the Force is like slightly disconnected. Um, it's still affecting the Force, but it's not as heavy of a
Yeah. Night Sister magic is very much like you need components for it to work, otherwise it does not work.
which almost makes it natural in a way
Yeah.
because you're using the things
What
around
I've
you.
always interpreted is it's not quite dark side because it still allows for things to like pass through between life and death kind
Mm-hmm.
of, which is why it
Because we get that discussion with Marin in
yeah.
Battle Scars, where Marin's like, "I'm friends with a Jedi, but I'm also using Night Sister magic. Is this good or is what am I doing?" And Cal's like, "No, you're fine."
It's a neutral action.
Yeah, it's a neutral. Yeah, it's neutral.
Yeah.
It's
Because
Force
it's
neutral,
surprisingly.
which there are not a lot of things, and I would say it's not. We got to be careful here. It's not gray Jedi. There is no such thing, because there is. You are either being a light, dark, or neutral, and neutral does not mean doing both light and dark. It means exactly what it sounds like. You are neutral.
Yeah.
You cannot be both light and dark, which is what gray Jedi like. That's what the gray Jedi fanboys try to do. They're like, I want to be a good guy, but also use Force lightning. It's like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. um, I want my edgelord character though to be able to do that. No, because like people will then point out the Bendu and be like, well, he's great. No, he is neutral because he is neither light nor dark. He is Force neutral, which you haven't dealt with the Bendu yet.
Oh, is it that big
It's that big
ox-looking thing?
Yeah, it's that big thing from Rebels. Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Like I've seen it. I just was like, oh, that's just like a physical incarnation.
which you're not wrong either. Like, yeah, he's very on the same. He's on the same level as father, son, and daughter in that he's a manifestation of the Force
Yeah.
to a degree. So at least that's how I've viewed it. Um, he's a manifestation of the neutrality of the Force, though,
Yeah.
because
Like
he says both. Like he's just like light and dark is bullshit. Fuck.
he's like,
He's like,
it's not quite a like. It's very much like a stick isn't evil
Yeah.
kind of thing
Yeah,
for me.
yeah, and so he's like, but that Sith holocron is dangerous. You should hand that over to me.
Here, I will handle this.
I will get rid of this to where nobody
I will
else can.
chuck it to the furthest reaches of the galaxy.
Because Ezra does get his hands on one in
Mm.
Rebels, and so.
But yeah, I don't know, Balin. What the fuck are you doing?
And the other question that goes along with this is, with Ray Stevenson passing, how do you think this story should be resolved within Ahsoka?
That's not really a question I think I can answer because to keep
Because that
going
goes
seems
into the emotional side of
disrespectful.
Well, but it could also not be depending on.
Yeah, like
Because I know a lot of actors. I don't know Ray's specific opinions, but I know a lot of actors have said that they would, if a story is being written, recast is fine because like if they die, that shouldn't take away from the art that's being created.
There's that part of me, and I do agree with that, but also I'm like, I don't know.
Like
Hopefully,
it's all. I think it's all dependent on how.
Yeah.
And so like I think a recast is fine. Like,
Mhm.
and it's one of those things that Star Wars has been very afraid to do. They don't do recasts like very openly. Like there's a history of only really three recasts.
Yeah.
And that is Han Solo,
Hmm.
Chewbacca, and Lando.
Yeah.
That's really it. And then not a lot of people saw the Solo movie, which had two out of those three recasts, because really the Chewbacca one had already happened with The Force Awakens.
Mhm.
And like, it wasn't a complete recast because the original Chewbacca was Peter Mayhew was still alive and still doing Star Wars, so it was him, and then I always forget how to say his name, but the younger actor
Yeah.
for Chewbacca. And so they were both doing it at the same time, and then Peter Mayhew passed, and so then became just the new actor. And then so that one was an easier one because he's a guy in a creature suit.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Might be a bit harder for this one.
and so not a lot of people watched Solo, and so ever since then, it feels like Lucasfilm has been like, let's not do a full recast ever again.
Mm-hmm.
And even before that, they weren't doing that really because the like Rogue One came out before that, and Tarkin, while they had an actor, they covered his face in CGI and made him look like Peter Cushing because they had the technology to do that. They said we've got we found this really old face mold of Peter Cushing in the archives, like these film archives. We have what we need to recreate his face digitally. Let's just put that as a digital mask over the actor, which I like that they, and I think that goes into the like AI talk as well.
Yeah.
Like I think that is fine because that's a situation of we talk to the family, we got the rights.
It's more of a like talk
and
to the family kind of deal.
And on top of that, they also still had an actor on set.
Yeah.
And so like there was still an actor delivering those lines and speaking those lines. They didn't dub him with an AI version of Tarkin, of Peter Cushing. The only thing they did digitally was put a mask on him, essentially.
I think as long as it's like handled with care and respect, it'll be fine.
The one thing I'm tired of them doing is the digital mask thing, though.
Yeah.
Like Rogue One was fine. I think the Tarkin one looked fine. I know some people that still think the Tarkin one looks weird. I didn't mind the Tarkin one. I thought, oh, this is showing that the technology for that is going somewhere, in my opinion. And then the Leia one shows up at the end of the film, and I didn't like the Leia one. And because they did the de-aged Leia, because they had to do a New Hope Leia, and I didn't like how that one looked. And then, and then the Mandalorian is really where they've been doing the digital masking, because season 2 they had the young Luke, where he looked like as if he was from straight out of Battlefront 2 for the season 2 ending, and then season 3 they brought him back and he looked better. But but then we saw the behind the scenes of that season, and we were like,
there was next to no difference.
Yeah, it was like, why did you put a digital mask on this man?
With it?
He looks almost like a young Mark Hamill. Go for it. And so that's what I would rather, just a full recast. Get somebody that looks as close to him, that is just as talented. Like, there's some good... I don't know who I would pick, though. That's the...
Good thing we're not casting directors.
Yeah, good thing, yeah. I mean, I can maybe think of some options if I was, like, given the time to sit down. And obviously, for respect reasons, I did not write that as the question. Because, we're not getting canceled for that. But I think a full recast is necessary.
Yeah.
I think this story does need to be complete because, personally, I think while Ray Stevenson is one of the best parts of this show, I think Balin's story arc might be one of the, not the worst things about this show, but it makes it weaker. Because it feels like an incomplete show.
Yeah.
And at the time, we vaguely knew that maybe a season 2 was happening, but there's no confirmation at the time. And I don't run with things unless there's a confirmation. I'm just like, rumors, okay, maybe they're doing season 2. But then we got confirmed to season 2 after the show came out, and I was just like, thank God, because
difficult.
Yeah, because season 1 feels like not really a full show.
Yeah.
And that was my main issue with the Balin arc, is that it feels like it's incomplete in a almost a bad way. It really depends on how season 2 does things. And then of course we get the movie, which I think the movie can't be the completion of Balin's arc. It has to be at least I think season 2 has to be where Balin's arc completes, because they're stuck on Peridia still. So that means deal with all the Peridia stuff in like the first half of the season.
Yeah.
Finish Balin's arc, then second half of the season, figure out how to get off Peridia. Well, no, first half you should also be getting off Peridia. by episode, if they do another 8 episode thing, by episode 4 they should be off Peridia.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe episode 3 they deal with Balin. Episode 4 they get off Peridia.
Yep.
And then 5 through 8 should be them tracking down Thrawn. We don't get the completion of Thrawn's arc because that's going to finish in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, it all depends on how they do things in season 2.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really tough for me to. This might be a show that's a little harder for me to put on a number, because it's a really good show for like 80 to 90% of it.
I'm gonna give it like a 7.
And I think it's a really good fandom show.
Yeah.
If you are really, really into the lore of Star Wars and you really like the Rebels characters and Clone Wars characters, this show is like candy. This is everything you've ever dreamed of. To a certain degree.
Yeah.
It's not a
For me it's one of those situations where it's like
you have some separation from this though.
Yeah. To me it's like, oh, this is another Star Wars story. Not one that I'm like, oh man, yeah, I am down for all of it.
Whereas I feel like the High Republic is that for you.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the High Republic is I need to know what happens next.
Yeah.
Whereas this is kind of like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah. It's like, once again, I've explained to you my thoughts on Star Wars. I'm so kind of not necessarily tired of like
the main time arrows.
Main time, yeah. Where I'm like, I either want to go into the future
or further in the past.
Further in the past.
Which I think, yeah, and I've gave my reasons for why I think the Mando verse is fine, because I think it's exploring an area.
Oh no, I don't think that it's like
it's not going forward per se, because it's not post sequel trilogy, but it's explaining a gap in the timeline.
It does, although I do like
because it's a 40-year gap. It's a 40-year gap.
It is a big gap. So, but I'm also like, the reason why I like the Mandalorian is it's very much like contained to its time.
Mm-hmm. And Ahsoka's kind of reaching a little more.
Yeah.
Because it's like, here's some stuff from Rebels, here's some stuff from Clone Wars.
I'm like, that was 9 to 10 years ago.
Almost 20, because Clone Wars.
No, I meant like
Real world. Got it. But yeah, I might give it.
There was a bit of confusion just then. Real world, it's been like almost 20 years.
No. I'm saying 20 years in universe, because Clone Wars is 19. Actually, it's more than that, because 9 years plus 19.
Yeah.
Because the Clone Wars ended in 19 BBY. Add 9 years on top of that for 9 years ABY.
Yeah, and it's just like,
so almost 3 decades.
Yeah,
if not,
plus Rebels and
which Rebels is closer. Rebels is only the 9, but yeah. I might give it an 8. That could change. My opinion of season 1 could change based on season 2.
Yeah.
So that's my stipulation. That's my stipulation to it. That's my stipulation to giving it just an 8.
Right now it's incomplete.
Yeah. It's the same discussions we've had when like High Republic Phase 1 was happening. We were like, we don't see the puzzle pieces. Like, we see the puzzle pieces, but we don't see the puzzle yet.
Yeah.
And so that's what Ahsoka season 1 is. I see the puzzle piece. I like where it's kind of going, but I want to see the puzzle as a whole before I judge it.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess an 8 for now, with a tentative 9. Like, it could be a 9. It could easily be a 9. But
C+ needs improvement.
Yeah. And so that's our thoughts on Ahsoka. Thank you all for watching today's episode of Escape Reality Star Wars Talk. I've been your host, Caleb. Be sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe to us. You can find us at Escape Reality Films on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and TikTok. You can also show your support for us by joining our Patreon, which is at Escape Reality Films. Shout out to Jennifer Brantley.
Yeah.
There you can watch our YouTube content before it's publicly available. So if you want to watch sessions of my Dungeons & Dragons Acquisitions Incorporated campaign before anyone else, which currently, yeah, you can still watch 2 sessions that aren't yet public. That's how you can do it for $5 a month. You can find me on Twitter at EscapeReality94 and Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Caleb.Lockwood. Also, we are now at 400 subscribers on YouTube.
Woo!
So, which was, I think, my goal for this year. I think I tentatively, like, to myself and maybe to some people, said 400 is the goal. Let's try to make it 450.
Yeah.
Let's push, because if we get 500, we are almost to 1,000. We are almost there, because the first 500 I know is like the hardest to get.
Yeah.
So if we can get past that 500, let's do this. So be sure to share with your friends too. Be sure to share the YouTube and the Patreon and everything to your friends, because the more people in the community, the better. Did I mention the Discord? No, I did not. Y'all can also join the Discord, which is, if you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching on Twitch, and I think Kick, it's like linked. So for YouTube, it's linked down below, and then everywhere else it's kind of linked on like the main page somewhere. And there you can hang out with us. We just chat, do whatever. That's where I run the D&D games, so y'all can listen in when we're recording them. So that's a free way to get ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
Join the Discord. You got some plugs, though.
Yes. So, every Sunday from 5 to 7 Central Standard Time, you can catch me with some friends of ours over at the Steam Dungeon, where we play in a campaign called Trials of Nebu, where I am not a good person. Nothing too sinister, mind you.
Yeah.
But currently discoveries that were made.
Yeah, keep going. I'm
Simon has come to the realization that maybe the same lady whose sister I've been hired to kidnap is also the same lady I'm supposed to go kill and finish the job on. So there's that. Meanwhile, the next round of the gladiator match is up. So we got done planning and discussing that. Found out some more information about the local gangs. And we're still going.
All right.
Also, Darpy, Lex's character is working on means to get these Oni out of her sister.
Oh, great.
Because they're, like, possessed.
Well, once again, that was the Steam Dungeon on YouTube. And Sundays, 5 to 7 Central.
Central Standard Time, Trials of Nebu. That's the name of it.
Yep. So once again, thank you all for watching. Join us next week as we talk about a lot of comics, including Visions Peach Momoko #1 one-shot. I do not have that on hand yet. Tales from the Death Star. Star Wars 2020 Volume 6, Quest of the Force. Darth Vader Volume 7, Unbound Force. And Scoundrels, Rebels, and the Empire. I have spoken.
Later.